Good morning. Welcome back to the Planet Doug podcast for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. And I'm sitting here in Planet Doug Studios, which at the moment is a room at the Malahayati Hotel in Tanjung Balai, Sumatra. I came back here about 1 week ago from Malaysia, and a lot of things have been going on, so I thought I would talk about all of those things this morning. I think in this particular behind-the-scenes video, I'm probably only going to be talking about what I've been doing in terms of Planet Doug and YouTube and my travels. I don't think I'll be talking about movies or TV shows or podcasts or current events, though current events alone you could talk about that for a couple of hours. There's a lot going on worldwide, affecting Canada, of course, and here in Indonesia as well. There are things going on. But so much has happened, I think I'll just talk about what I've been doing. So to start that story, I guess I have to go all the way back to Kuala Lumpur, because all along when I went back to KL, it was with the idea of returning here. It's a little bit of a jumble right now, everything that's been going on, because going way back, I was in Port Dickson in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia. And the only reason I went to Port Dickson at the time was to work on some videos from Vietnam. I found an inexpensive room where I could stay in Port Dickson, and I was going to stay there and keep working on the videos until they were done. And I went down there to bring my bicycle there because I was going to leave it in storage at my friend's house in Port Dickson. He offered me a place to put it. So I thought, oh, that's great. So the idea was just to zoom down to Port Dickson, stay for a month, finish the Vietnam videos, and store my bicycle. And then at that time, my main thoughts were about returning to Vietnam, where I had just come from. But then things started to spin out of control, as they often do on Planet Doug. For one thing, I just had a ton of trouble with technology. I had no access to Wi-Fi, as it turned out. Things didn't really work out with the places where I was staying. And then I had computer problems as well. I was working on Patreon, getting that set up, and that took a lot longer than I expected. And then while I was there, I thought I might as well put my bike together. It was all disassembled. And then I thought, well, I'm here in Port Dickson. It'd be nice to have a little bit of transportation. And the friend of mine who was going to store my bicycle, he kind of wanted the bike to be assembled when I put it at his house so he could actually see it. Oh, there's Doug's bicycle, rather than just something in a box, if you know what I mean. So I thought, okay, yeah, I'll put my bike together. So I did that, and then once I had my bike together and I was riding it around Port Dickson, I enjoyed that sense of freedom so much, I thought I might as well hop across to Sumatra on the ferry when my visa expired. I thought, oh, it'd be kind of cool. Well, I needed to leave Malaysia anyway because my visa was going to expire. And then I was right there in Port Dickson where they have the ferry that goes to Sumatra. It's really convenient. Just hop on the boat and go across to Sumatra. So I was going to do that before I returned and then went to Vietnam. But then I thought, well, I can put my bike on a boat. And then I thought, yeah, I'll just bring the bike along and I'll go for a bike ride around Sumatra, kind of stretch my legs, maybe even return to Malaysia, do some cycling in Malaysia. And I thought maybe it would be like one last hurrah on the bicycle, because cycling doesn't really fit well with making YouTube videos, as I've discovered and as many people have discovered. And I don't know whether physically I'm even capable of long distance cycling anymore in difficult conditions, getting older. But I thought, yeah, let's do this. It was supposed to be very simple, very easy, very quick. Hop on the boat, go to Sumatra, ride my bike around, come back to Malaysia, and then move on. And that was months and months ago, because things just sort of happened. Good things. For example, I was contacted by some Planet Doug subscribers who heard about all of my laptop problems and all my other technology issues, and they offered to give me a laptop. But in order to get the laptop, I had to go to Jakarta. And in order to do that, the easiest way to get to Jakarta, believe it or not, was to leave Indonesia. Because getting there from here is actually pretty complicated and relatively expensive. It was easier and cheaper to go back to Malaysia. So even though I'd pretty much just gotten here, and then I was here for a while working on Patreon, getting that set up, and then I just hopped back on the boat, went back to Malaysia, flew to Jakarta, met up with my mystery benefactors, got the new laptop, the tough Asus A16 Gaming Edition, went back, and then I flew from there to Medan, and then I spent some time again. I had certain ideas about what I wanted to do with Patreon, and it took a long time to get that set up, a lot longer than I anticipated. And then before I knew it, my visa for Indonesia had expired again, and I had to go back to Malaysia. So I returned to Malaysia, and of course I was also dealing with all the holidays at this time. This all happened to be taking place during Christmas, during then Chinese New Year, and then it was Ramadan. And Ramadan really, all these holidays really slows things down. Everything's closed, and there are problems because of that. So then I was in Kuala Lumpur during much of Ramadan, and then finally it was time to return to Sumatra because my bicycle was still here. And I thought, well, at this point, the whole idea behind the bike ride was something very simple and quick and easy, but that didn't happen. But my bike was still here, and I'd invested all of this time and money and effort preparing for this bike ride. So I figure, well, the moment has passed, to be honest. The urge in my head to go on this bike ride had kind of receded because I've been busy with so many other things. But I thought, wow, the bike is there. Let's go there, get on the bike, and finally go on this bike ride. And that is what finally led to me returning to Sumatra this time. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but that's basically what's been going on. And the basic driving force behind my life recently has been this idea, a kind of an impulse idea, to just go to Sumatra and ride my bike around a little bit and then return to Malaysia. But that kind of spiraled out of control. And I lost track of time, lost track of events. I was overtaken by events, and I never actually went on that bike ride yet. So I'm here in Sumatra intending to go on this bike ride, and the idea is to ride up to Lake Toba and then down the other side of Sumatra to a city called Sibolga on the coast that I've always wanted to visit. I've never gone there. And then depending on the time and mood, I could ride my bike up or down the coast, like north or south along the coast, and then circling back to here to get back on the ferry when the trip is over. So that's the basic idea of what's going on here. The story of this trip, of course, begins with getting the visa. And what I did for Indonesia was get the 30-day visa on arrival that you can apply for online. And I've done that a couple of times already. So I've sort of got the system figured out. So the very first time I did it, it was a big drama. Everything went wrong. It was very complicated and confusing. But now I've sort of got the system figured out. And if I remember right, it went pretty smoothly this time. It isn't completely easy because the Indonesian system requires that you upload 2 copies of everything, like a photo and your documents, like flight out of the country, things like that. And a photo of your passport, I mean. So you've got your picture of your passport, and a picture of your flight out of the country. But you have to upload those as JPEGs, which is fine. That's what you normally do. But then when you go through their system, you get to the final page, you have to re-upload them again. You have to upload them a second time, but this time they have to be PDFs. And that always was a bit of an issue for me because unless you do these things routinely and you have the programs to do it, it's a bit confusing. It's like, okay, I've got a JPEG because all you do is take your phone and you take a picture of your passport Okay, that's easy. Anybody can do that. But now how do you take that and turn it into a PDF? I've done it in the past, but the program I used to use was on my MacBook, and the MacBook was gone. It was dead. And so anyway, I had to figure that out originally, and it was a bit of a struggle. I think all I had was a smartphone at the time, and I was trying to figure out how to create PDFs on my smartphone, things like that. And on the Indonesian visa on arrival system, the payment system is hidden. The payment process is hidden, and the results are hidden, it's a very weird website where you go through all these stages, and the final stage is the payment stage. You can see that all nicely laid out in a chart, but when you finally get to the payment stage in the chart, nothing happens. Your documents apparently get submitted, and then you get a message that says, okay, we've received your application, now we are awaiting payment. And you're left floundering. It's like, okay, well, how do you pay? Like, it's not part of the automated system. It doesn't take you to a payment stage. And that really confused me the first time I did it. But this time I kind of know how to do it. But again, I won't go into all the details. Their website is a bit of a mess, so it's hard to figure out, because you end up with a record of your visa application, but the record of your application is also hidden. It's hidden underneath a menu item called batch for some reason. You have to click on batch, and when you click on batch, you finally get a copy of your most recent application. And then you get a whole bunch of numbers, and you have to click on one of those numbers in order to open up a screen. You scroll down to the bottom, and then there's a little payment button. It's like a scavenger hunt. It's like getting out of an escape room. But again, this time I know how to do it, so I don't think I had any huge problems doing it. I got it done. And then I ran into some other issues, as I always do. I wasn't planning ahead very well. I think in my head I was sort of waiting for Ramadan to end, because I didn't want to be cycling around Indonesia during Ramadan, because in my experience it's a tough time of the year to be traveling. Restaurants are closed, businesses are closed, government offices can be closed, and in Indonesia things can be pretty erratic to begin with. During normal times, I never know when anything is open, like restaurants. They just sort of open and close. It seems like whenever they feel like it. It's hard to keep track. Fold into that Ramadan, and of course, as a cyclist, yeah, you kind of want to have a meal from time to time. You need to put fuel in the tank, and then you're riding your bike. I went through this, one of my big bike trips happened during Ramadan when I was in Guinea in West Africa, and I had a lot of trouble getting food there. So I don't have a good feeling about cycling during Ramadan. But then, in the end I decided, I should go anyway. But I guess I waited a bit too long, because we were getting towards the end of Ramadan, but I lose track of the dates of Ramadan. All the other holidays, I've got a handle on them, but Ramadan always trips me up for some reason. When it starts, when it ends, and then it ends with a big holiday. So you think, okay, Ramadan will end on this day, but on the day, and you're mentally thinking, okay, that's the end of the holiday, life goes back to normal. But no, because now there's one more week tacked on the end of it, the celebration of the ending of Ramadan, which has, I think, 2 official holidays, but most people extend it out to a full week. So you get an entire month of Ramadan. Ramadan ends, and then there's a week-long celebration where everything is still closed, and people are on the move, and everything is really busy, because it's a bit like, it's like a homecoming. People who celebrate Ramadan will go home for the celebration, and then they spend time with their family, and they have big meals together, because the fasting is over, and now everybody goes home to their hometown, stays with their family, and they celebrate the end of the fasting period by having good meals together as a family. So it's a big festive week. So that kind of took me by surprise, because This happened actually when I was in Kuala Lumpur, and I was out for the day with my friend Daryl. We were out shopping, running errands, doing something. And then he was asking me, what are your plans? What are you doing? When are you going? And how long? He wanted to know the details. And then so while I was chatting with him, I said, I plan on taking the boat back to Sumatra. And he's like, well, have you booked a ticket yet? And I was like, well, no, I haven't done that yet. And just because he brought up the topic, we were actually in a grocery store. He was shopping. I had nothing to do there. So I thought, he put the idea in my head. So I thought, well, I better check online to see when the boats are, because I was planning on leaving the next week, but I hadn't investigated on which day the boats left. And since Daryl put the idea in my head, I got out my phone and I went to the Indomall Fast Ferry Company website, and I just picked a day at random, like Wednesday. Are there any boats? And it said, no departure available. Oh, okay. So I went to Thursday, no departure available. Friday, no departure. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I went 10 days into the future from that Wednesday, and it just kept saying, no departure available, no departure available. And I assumed that meant they closed for Ramadan, because even when I took the boat back to Malaysia, I got the very last boat, because after that date, there were no boats available. And on their website, it says no departure, which I assumed meant no boats, like they canceled the boats, then there were no boats operating. And someone at the company even told me that, I think. But it turns out their website is just mislabeled. What it really means is the boat is sold out. So it says basically that there's no boat going, but that's not the truth. What it says is the boat is sold out, no tickets available. So it turns out, because of this week of celebration, everybody, like all the Indonesian workers who live in Malaysia, all of them are coming home for the end of Ramadan. So they were all buying tickets in advance, and all the boats were sold out for days and days and days and days and days. It's like, I waited too long again. I always do that. It drives me crazy. I really need to plan better. I plan a lot. I'm a big planner. I love organizing. I love planning. I love logistics. I kind of love planning events more than the events themselves. Like if I decide to go to Sumatra to go on a bike tour, the planning and the preparation gives me a great deal of pleasure. I love doing it. And yet when it comes to actual days and dates, I seem to have a mental block, and I end up screwing up every single time. And I'd done it again. I had all this time in Kuala Lumpur where I could have gotten my visa and booked a boat ride before the big rush for the end of Ramadan. But I just wasn't aware of the dates. I wasn't paying attention to them. All the holidays in Malaysia take me by surprise all the time. There's so many holidays there because they have so many different cultures that they honor officially. So we've got the Malay holidays, in the Islamic calendar, they follow all of their holidays. But then they have the Buddhist holidays as well. For the Chinese community in Malaysia, all of their holidays are honored. And then the Hindu calendar is also honored. So you've got, every time you turn around, it's another holiday, and everything's closed, and everybody's traveling, and everything's booked. It takes me by surprise in Malaysia every single time. Drives me crazy. But anyway, it happened again. So there I am in the store, and I'm chatting with Daryl, and I'm showing him, it's like, there's no boats. There's no boats. So it looked like I was going to have to stay in Malaysia for another 2 or 3 weeks, waiting until there is a boat going, or I could fly, of course. But of course, the flights are going to be busy as well. The airports are going to be crowded, and all the flights were 2 or 3 times the normal price. They'd all gone up for Ramadan, the end of Ramadan celebrations. But anyway, now I started to go backwards because I started on Wednesday of the following week. Like, that's the day I thought, okay, maybe, is there a boat on Wednesday? And it said, no boats. Thursday, no boats. Friday, no boats, on and on and on. So then I went backwards, and on Tuesday, there it said there was a boat available, and on Monday. So I ended up right, like that night, I got back to my hotel in Kuala Lumpur, and I booked a ticket online. Like normally what I do, I like to do things in person. I don't like to do things online if I can help it. So what I like to do is go to, basically, you can reserve the ticket online by sending them a WhatsApp message. That's what I did in the past because I didn't know any other way to do it. And then I would just send them a message, Indomall Fast Ferry, and give them my name and address and phone number, passport information, the date I want to go, and they reserve a seat for me. And then I go to Port Dickson a couple of days before the ferry, and then I go to their office at the harbor, and then I pay for the ticket. I have a reservation, but I still had to pay for it. That's how I normally do it. And I go to the office and I pay for it, and I upgrade to a VIP class. But this time I didn't trust that, because if all I did was reserve a ticket, but I don't pay for it, there's so much demand for tickets right now, I'm pretty sure they're gonna cancel it and someone else will get it. But I figured out that my credit card would work on their website. So in fact, I paid for the ticket online with my credit card, which I don't normally like doing. I don't like booking, like paying for one-off items on my credit card, because I'm so paranoid about my credit card getting compromised. That can lead to a lot of problems in my life, because that credit card is so important to me as ID, if nothing else. So, but anyway, I did finally book a seat on the ferry for that Tuesday and paid for it. So I had everything, and then I downloaded my copy of my ticket and things like that. So the next stage for me, which part of my life, is printing things out, because I had my ferry ticket, and I had my Indonesian visa on arrival document, and I had my flight out of Indonesia booked, because in order to get the visa on arrival, you have to book a flight out of the country, because you have to submit that as part of your application. And then when you arrive at immigration, they can ask to see your flight out of the country. And normally I go in and out by boat. I don't fly, but there are ways of working this out, and I did something special to get my flight out of the country. So I had these 3 documents, and I like to have them printed out. And there's a place in KL Central, the mall, where I change money. There's a money changer there, and there's a photocopy place where I go to get copies. And what I normally do is copy all of my documents to a flash drive, because they were all on I think they were all on my laptop this time, yeah. And then I copied them from my laptop to a flash drive, and then I also copied them to my phone, because I remember last time I was there, they wouldn't take the flash drive. So they said, oh, no, you have to email it to us. The thing that you want us to print out, you have to send us a copy, either by email or via WhatsApp, which always strikes me as a little bit of a weird thing, because you're printing out personal documents, has all of my personal information in it, name and address and phone number and my passport number, all that kind of personal ID. But in order to get a photocopy, now I'm emailing all of my documents to this company, and they will have a digital copy on their computer, which doesn't seem wise in the modern age, but that's just how it works. But anyway, I went there fully armed with a flash drive and my phone, and then I got there, and then they said, no, we can't use your flash drive. You have to send it to us by WhatsApp. So I found the documents on my phone, and I sent it to them by WhatsApp. But then the woman turned to me and says, "Oh, one of these we can't print," because it turned out it was I had saved. I didn't save the PDF. I saved the PNG file, like it's basically like a JPEG, right? It was like a photo file. And she says, "No, we can't print that. You have to convert it to a PDF." And I was like, "Oh, for Pete's sake!" And I couldn't do that on my phone, but this woman said that she could do it. And this is always a bit of a weird modern situation where someone says, "Give me your phone," and your instinctive reaction is to hug your phone. It's like, "Oh, are you crazy?" No, because your phone is so important these days. It has everything on it, and you don't want to give your phone to somebody and say, "Oh yeah, go ahead, download whatever you need, install whatever you need, just do whatever you need on my phone." It's like, oh, that really, you don't want to do that. But the woman, I held on to my phone, and the woman just says, "Oh, can you show it to me on your phone?" So I opened it up on a folder and said, "Okay, here it is here." And she says, "Oh yeah, I can do that." And I watched what she was doing, and then she basically converted it into a PDF somehow. And then she printed it out. So I was very happy. And then I left from there. I had all my documents. But I do have a habit of double checking everything, a very good habit in my life. So I stepped out of the door of this photocopy place, and I got out all my documents, and I went over them carefully. Okay, yep, that one looks good. That one looks good. Then I got to my flight out of Indonesia, and it was the wrong one. It was an old one. Somehow the woman had clicked on the wrong one, and she had converted an old flight to a PDF. And that was not the right one. It didn't have the right dates on it. So the old one was still here, but now she had done something on my phone that no matter what I did, it would only look for PDFs. And I still haven't managed to fix this. I don't know what she did, how she did it, what she did. But so now I had my old like JPEGs and PNG files with my old flight on it, but I couldn't locate them. I could locate them, I go to the folder, I can see them, and then when I double click on it, it won't open it because it says, "Oh, there are no PDFs here." So somehow my phone now only opens PDFs and nothing else. And it's like, the modern world, right? And there's no way I can go back into the store and say to the woman, like, "What did you do to my phone? I can only open PDFs now. Like, I can't access anything else." And anyway, so then I went all the way back to my apartment because I had the original on my laptop, and then I got onto my laptop and I got the PNG or whatever it's called, converted it to a PDF on my laptop, copied it to my phone. Now I had a PDF, and then I was able to WhatsApp it to that shop, and they printed it out for me. But again, it's kind of a good illustration of the way my life goes these days, because it's a very simple thing. All I needed to do was make a couple of photocopies, and that should take 5 minutes, but it took pretty much a day, an entire day, just to make copies of my documents, because I had to make several trips back and forth. I had to sit on my computer, convert everything to PDFs, get everything onto flash drives, onto smartphones, and go to the photocopy place, make another trip, come back. The whole day is practically over, and all you've done is make 3 photocopies. It's kind of ridiculous. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. I think it was from Radio Lab, it was from Freakonomics, I think, and it was called Sludge. And the whole podcast was about basically this: all these situations we run into in the modern world where there is sludge in the process that slows you down, where exactly like the Indonesian website, where you go through the entire process, filling out the entire online form, and then you get to the very end, and then it says, "Oh, these have to be PDFs." You're like, oh, for Pete's sake. Like the first time that happened, I didn't know. So now you basically had to stop and then change everything into PDF and then fill out the entire form a second time. Or again, on the Indonesian website, they need the address of your hotel in Sumatra. But all of the fields were grayed out. So you're sitting there and it wants the name of your hotel, it wants the street address, it wants the district, it wants the state, it wants all these address details, and you can't input anything because you can't click on any of those fields. Sludge. Like, what do you do? And then you eventually figured out that what you have to do is input the Indonesian postal code. And you put in the postcode, and once you put in the postcode, it automatically populates all the other address information. But of course, you don't know that the first time you're doing it. Or it asks you for your phone number, and you try to input your phone number, but it won't accept the format of your phone number. Like if you're trying to put in your phone number from Canada or something, and you're trying to put in the number, but it doesn't have the right number of numbers. And it's like, oh, it only accepts Indonesian numbers that have a certain sequence, right? You always run into something, and all of this is called sludge. And I run into sludge in my life all the time. But anyway, that was the adventure of just booking the ticket and getting the photocopies. And again, you don't technically need these copies. I know that. If you've done something digitally, it's okay just to have the digital copy. But I run into so many situations, like at Indonesian immigration, where they got my passport and whatnot. They'll look up at me and they'll say, "Oh, so you have a visa?" They're hardwired to see the piece of paper, and who knows? Like on your phone, the battery might be dead. There might be no internet connection. Some sort of an issue, so it's nice to have a paper backup, right? So I do make the paper copies. So I finally got all of that sorted out, and then the next stage was to go to Port Dickson and then continue the journey from there. And I need another cup of coffee. I'll tell that story once I make my next cup of coffee. More sludge, as it turns out. All right, coffee number 2 for this morning. So the plan this time was to spend just one night in Port Dickson. So my ferry was on Tuesday. So I made arrangements to go to Port Dickson on Monday. I was going to spend one night Monday, get up early Tuesday morning, and then go to the dock and get on the ferry. And a friend of mine, KY, he doesn't live there, he lives in Kuala Lumpur, but he grew up in Port Dickson, and he has a family home there and friends and relatives there. So he offered to drive me from Kuala Lumpur to Port Dickson on Monday. And then the very first thing I normally do when I get to Port Dickson is I go straight to the dock, because I had booked my ferry ticket online, and I downloaded my ticket, so I did have a paper printout of my ticket, but I always like to go to the place the day before, whether it's taking a train, a bus. I want to know where the train station is, confirm the train exists. Quite often you book things online. This happened to me in Thailand quite often, where you book something online and you think you're done, but then when you get to the train station, it turns out, no, you still need the ticket. So then you've got to somehow find someone somewhere, some office or desk, and you show them your online reservation, and they have to go on their computer and confirm it, and then print out an actual ticket. Until then, you don't actually have a ticket for that train yet. So I've run into that situation many times, and others. And in this case for the ferry, I wanted to upgrade to a VIP ticket. Again, their website, I don't know why, but on their website you can't book VIP class. You can only buy an economy class ticket, and VIP is a lot more comfortable and it isn't expensive. So it's a rare VIP ticket that I can afford. So I like to get the VIP class, but you can't do it online. So I actually have to go to the ticket office at the dock the day before or several days before, and then tell them, okay, I'm here, and they print out an actual ticket and they upgrade me to VIP. So I'm basically checking in. It's basically like going through an airport. You have to check in for your flight. It's a good idea to go to the dock the day before and officially check in for your ferry ride. So I did that. That worked out pretty well. Didn't have any, no sludge there. There were no issues at all. But then I ran into a thick flood of sludge because I booked a room at a place in Port Dickson. I've done it once before. I stayed at this place called Marvel A&B. And the first time I did it, I ran into all kinds of trouble because I just thought it was a hotel. So I booked a room at this hotel, but it turns out it was one of these contactless hotels. They didn't allow you to check in until 3 o'clock, so quite late in the day, which I don't like. And that rule ends up being enforced. Like a lot of countries you go to, like Vietnam, for example, a lot of the hotels, of course, they have the normal noon checkout, 2 p.m. check-in. So technically, you can't check into your room until 2 p.m. But quite often the rooms are ready. And if you show up at 12 o'clock and there are people at the front desk, they'll say, oh yeah, your room's ready. And you can check into your room 2 hours early without any issue. I do that all the time. But when you have a place where there are no staff, there's no front desk, and you need to punch in a code at the front door, well, you can't check in until they send you the code. And of course, they don't send you the code until like 2:30 or 2:45 because check-in is at 3. So they really control when you can get into this place. And I didn't know any of that the first time I did it, and it ended up being pretty confusing for me. And this time I was even more confused because I booked it on Agoda. Just went to Agoda. I was looking for a place to stay. Marvel is right downtown, so it's like 1 kilometer away from the dock. So it's pretty easy to walk from there to the dock. That's nice. My normal hotel, the seafront, this is about 3 kilometers away, and that's too far to walk in the morning carrying luggage in your arms, so I didn't want to do that. So I booked a room at Marvel, and it was just a normal booking. So I thought, oh, I guess they have staff now. So, I booked it on Agoda, I chose the date, and I entered, paid for it online, everything was done, I got the confirmation, and that was it. It was just a normal Agoda hotel booking. So I thought, oh, they must have gotten rid of the contactless system, and now they must have someone at the front desk, and you just show up and the doors open and you can go in. So I was pretty happy about that. But when I got there, it was still contactless. There was nobody there. The hotel wasn't open. They just have a big steel shutter, and then they have a heavy-duty steel door. So there's no glass of any kind. There's hardly any signage. It's really hard to locate if you don't know where it is. And then all you can do is stare at the door because you're stuck. There's a keypad, and until they send you the code, you can't get in. And I ended up getting there pretty early because KY and we drove down there pretty early, which was nice for me. But now I was there hours early, and I had to wait until 3 p.m. until I didn't even know, but I had no information. I had got no email, I got no messages, nothing. All I did was book the room and then nothing. So I was like, well, how do I get the code? When do I get the code? Like there was no system kicked in of any kind. So I thought that was kind of weird. But anyway, I went to a coffee shop and I just settled in. KY had some shopping to do, and I just happily spent some time at the coffee shop. And I waited and waited until 3 o'clock rolled around. And then I got a message on WhatsApp. No, I got an email. That's right, I got an email. And I thought, okay, that's how it works. Because Agoda has my email address. So whoever owns Marvel, they have access to my email address. I thought, okay, now they just sent me the code. But I opened up the email, and the email said something like, you didn't give us contact information. So, like, right out of the gate, it was a really aggressive, you did something wrong message. I was like, what do you mean I didn't send you contact information? I booked a room on Agoda. It has my email address. It has my phone number. I think it has my phone number. It has my email address for sure. Well, what do you mean you don't have contact information? You just send me an email. Anyway, it was just very aggressive and kind of hostile, telling me right out of the gate, you didn't give us any contact information. So please contact this number on WhatsApp. And it was very abrupt, very terse, and I didn't appreciate the tone of the email at all. I'm very sensitive to these customer service issues. I never understand why businesses have to be so kind of hostile right out of the gate. I mean, I'm a big believer in good customer service. Anyway, this guy, whoever it was that wrote to me, and anyway, so I went to WhatsApp and I entered this phone number and I said, hello, this is Doug Nienhuis, and I got an email from Marvel AB&B saying that I have to send a message to this phone number. I was very polite in my normal style. And then I started getting messages again from this person saying, yeah, you didn't give us any contact information. Like, they were really, again, kind of aggressive about it. And then did they send it by, how did all this work out now? This was like a couple of weeks ago now. So now I established that I was there, and then they told me on WhatsApp, okay, we will send you an email with the login information. But in the WhatsApp message was a long list of threats. I took them as threats because it was telling me everything I can't do. You can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. If you do this, we fine you 50 ringgit. If you do this, we fine you 100 ringgit. If you do this, we fine you, you can't. It was like, dude, I haven't even, like, why are you hitting me with all of these threats of fines and rules? And the very first one really jumped out at me because it said in big letters, I forget the exact wording now, but no bicycles allowed. If you try to bring a bicycle in, we will cancel your reservation and we will fine you and we will do this and we will do. And I'm like, dude, like, calm down a little bit here. And I guess all of this is automated, right? You just get a message from the hotel and it's automated and they just sort of send you all the rules. But I don't know, I always find that weird. Like, why don't they start it off with, hey, welcome to Marvel AB&B. We're really happy you chose us for your stay in Port Dickson. We hope you have a good time. We will do everything we can to make your stay a pleasant one. If you need anything, let us know, get in touch, like, welcome me to your establishment first. Be nice to me, make me feel good as a customer, as a guest. And then at the end you can say, by the way, no bicycles, no pets, no smoking, no this, no this, no this, on and on. Yeah, that's all well and good, but don't come right out of the gate with this. And I took the bicycle thing personally because it was the way it was written, it was very informal and it felt like it was aimed directly at me, like as if they knew that I sometimes rode a bicycle and they're like, oh, this guy. Like, maybe foreigners have a habit of showing up with bicycles, and then when they bring them into the hotel, the bicycle can be muddy or wet or dirty, or they get oil on the carpet or something. They damage something because of their bicycle, and they probably had bad experience with bicycles in the past, and now they're getting ahead of it and saying, no bicycles. But the way it was written, it was like directed personally at me. And I'm like, dude, I don't have a bicycle, like back off a little bit. And then I start getting these emails from them, and every email was the same. Started off with threats about bicycles, about if I soil the carpet, I have to pay this much. No smoking. If I smoke, I have to pay this much. If you damage this much. If you lose the key. It's like am I entering a prison, or am I staying at a hotel? And again, I think I'm being way too sensitive about this. You can just sort of assume that these are just the hotel rules, and it's an automated email, so don't worry about it. But I just find it a weird way to approach customers, guests. And then at about 2:45, I guess, I got the email that gave me the code for the front door, and then another code to open up a little lock box at my door, my hotel room door, and then I finally get the key that can open my door. But that was a whole lot of sludge to work through, and if I can manage it, I would never stay at Marvel again. It's just, I think they have to up their customer service game a little bit. Just be nice to me. I like it when people are nice to me. Then they can hit me with all the rules and the fines and the threats. But it was very much an unpleasant sort of experience. All that being said, I did have a good night. I mean, I think the average person on a holiday would not like Marvel, I don't think. It's a low-budget hotel, and the idea is to pay less money because you're not interested in luxuries. So the room is small. There's no windows, there's no furniture. It's basically a mattress and a toilet and a shower. And that's the whole room, more or less. It's clean, it's well equipped. You know, I thought the mattress was perfectly comfortable. The room had a kettle, which was nice. I have my own kettle, of course, but it's nice when the room has a kettle and you can use that one. And the hot water heater was brand new, so you had a nice hot water shower. Though getting in and out of the shower area is really hard. The whole, like the toilet area with the sink and the shower and everything is on a raised platform, maybe 1.5 feet up off the ground. So it's a big step to get up there. And the doorway is quite narrow and the room is quite small. So you actually kind of end up a little bit, it's awkward stepping up and getting in and out. And I can see people who have limited mobility or children, you couldn't stay in one of those rooms. They might be able to step up into that shower area, but I can see elderly people not being able to step down. The floor will be slippery and there's nothing really to hold on to. I think it's pretty dangerous, so I wouldn't stay there if you have children or elderly people or anything like that. But even as a low budget hotel, again, for Malaysia in general, I find it's not very good value compared to neighboring countries. So it's low budget, but by the time you add all the taxes, all the fees, the tourism tax, it still ends up being about 60 ringgit per night. And for 60 ringgit, it feels like you should get more than you get, especially when you're doing all the work yourself, having to wait until 3 o'clock before you can check in, and then you get threatened by the email with all of the fines, and then you have the code. You've got to enter the. It's you're doing all the work to save money, but you're really not saving any money. 60 ringgit is still, for Malaysia, that's for low budget living, still a lot of money to pay for a cheap room. Anyway. But I had a good night there. I slept well. I was relaxed. I went to bed early. And my plan was to go to the dock as early as possible because the boat was sold out. I knew it was going to be busy, a lot of people, a lot of luggage, and I wanted to get a jump on it. And when I was leaving from the dock the day before, the security guards at the gate, they stopped me and they said, oh, so you're going to, where are you going? Tanjung Balai or Dumai? Because the boats go to those two different cities. And I said, well, I'm going to Tanjung Balai. And they said, oh, well, you better get here really early because immigration serves Tanjung Balai passengers first. So I don't know how that works out either. But anyway, they were telling me, even though my boat was supposed to leave at 10, they said, you better get here by 7. If you get here by 7, because you're going to need a lot of time, and they process you early. They said by 8:30, you go through immigration for Tanjung Balai or something like that. Anyway, everyone who spoke to me put it in my head that I really better get there early. So I woke up really early. My plan was to walk there, but in the end I took a Grab, which I don't normally do, but I was anticipating a long, difficult day, and I didn't want to start the day exhausted and hot and sweaty and kind of stressed out, because walking in Malaysia is never that great an experience. It's not like you're strolling down nice sidewalks. You're walking down the side of the road. And I didn't have a backpack. I just have this luggage I have to hold in my arms. And my arms get really tired, and traffic zooming past you as you're walking down the side of the road and going through busy intersections. So at the last minute, I thought, well, check Grab. My instinct is that Grab is too expensive for someone like me. I think of Grab as a luxury, and I think of Grab as being uninteresting as a way of traveling. So like even the classic Planet Doug Batu Caves test, someone who visits the Batu Caves in KL, if they want to get an A on the test, they have to go there by train. If they take a Grab to get to Batu Caves, they can't get an A on the Batu Caves test. It just doesn't feel like a local experience to take a Grab. It's too easy, it's too isolated from the country, it's too much luxury. So I normally don't take a Grab. But I checked online, I called up the Grab website, or Grab app, and to my surprise, it worked. I normally have a lot of trouble with these things because of my SIM cards and changing phone numbers all the time, and the Grab app never works because I'm in the wrong country and da 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 da. But anyway, this time it seemed to be working just fine, and it said it was 5 ringgit to go to the dock. And I thought, well, 5 ringgit? Yeah, let's do that. And it said it would come in 5 minutes. So all the stars aligned. And so I clicked on the summon a Grab button, and a very pleasant woman in a brand new car came and picked me up and drove me to the dock, and I gave her a nice tip on top of the 5 ringgit. Yeah, it was a very pleasant experience. So that was a good way to start the day. And then things got a little bit complicated, a little bit difficult. I know how to do all of this because I've taken the ferry in the past. But even knowing the system a little bit doesn't really help that much, because it's so crowded getting on these boats. And because of the Ramadan holidays, much more crowded, and everybody going home to see their family was bringing huge amounts of luggage with them, because they buy things in Malaysia and bring them to their family, or they sell them back in Indonesia. So massive amounts of luggage. And then there's these little tables run by the Indomall Fast Ferry Company where you check in for your boat, which I didn't need to do because I'd already checked in. But then there's just a little table tucked away near the building where you get your luggage weighed, and then you have to pay to put it on the boat. But what ends up happening, I don't know why this happens, because when I do it, I drop off my luggage, they weigh it, I pay for it, then they load it onto carts, and then they push the cart to the boat, right? So you'd think as the luggage is processed, it would all be taken away. But it doesn't happen that way. I guess it's the difference between Tanjung Balai and Dumai, maybe. Maybe they take the Tanjung Balai luggage away, but all the Dumai luggage stays there. But anyway, for whatever is going on, this dock area is just jammed with luggage, mountains and mountains and mountains of it piled everywhere, all around the table. So you're, as a new passenger, a new arrival, you're trying to get close to the table so you can get somebody's attention to get in line, so that, yeah, you're trying to drop off your bags, and it's not like an airport, and there's no room to move around at all. And everywhere you turn, you're blocked because there are these huge walls of luggage on all sides of you, and there's no real system. Basically, what you have to do is fight with all the other people to get the attention of one of the staff members. They've got these young men that work for the ferry company, and they're running around with a stack of luggage stickers, and then they come up to you, and then they talk to you and say, oh, how many bags? What is your name? And they write your name with a Sharpie, and then they take the sticker and put it onto the bag. But the weird thing is, you don't get anything. I've never understood the system. So the guy fills out the luggage tag, slaps it on the bag, and then he goes away. So now I don't have anything. I don't have a receipt. I don't have anything that matches. I mean, I'm sure there's a number on the luggage tag that is now stuck to my bag, I'm sure, but I don't have any kind of documentation that connects me to that number or that bag. I've got nothing. So the bag gets picked up and it disappears, and now I'm like, well, like what happens if the bag disappears? I have no identification at all, nothing. So it's really a weird system. But in this case, because I'm a foreigner, they recognize me and they take care of me a little bit. They know I don't know what to do, so I got some extra help. And then after the guy put the tag on my bag, he then kind of picked it up and put it near the table where bags get weighed. Because near the table, there's like people crowded around, piles of luggage everywhere. But he put my bag there, and then he sort of shouted out to another guy and says, pointed at the bag and at me, saying, okay, that's the foreigner's bag, okay? And then he disappeared. And again, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. So anyway, I just joined the crowd, and you're milling around and you're wondering what's going on, what am I supposed to do? And yeah, there is no real system, there's no procedure, there's no lineup, I've got no papers to present to anybody. But eventually, somebody grabbed my bag, put it on the scale, and then they took a little notepad, like something you would buy to go to high school or something, like a little spiral ring notepad, and he had a pencil, and he wrote down on the notepad 10 ringgit. And he tore off that piece of paper and then handed it to the people at the desk. And I saw him do this because I guess my bag weighed 10 kilograms and it costs 1 ringgit per kilogram. So he wrote down on this piece of paper, I guess maybe he wrote my name and 10 ringgit. And it was like a piece of paper torn out of a notebook, handed it to these people, and then I just sort of stood around for a long time waiting. This piece of paper went into a box with a whole bunch of other pieces of paper, and they're always rummaging around in this box and pulling out papers. And eventually my piece of paper was pulled out, and they kind of looked around, and I think they recognized maybe the name was a foreign name, and it was like, oh, foreigner. And I paid them 10 ringgit, and they gave me that piece of paper. And that's all I had, like a little scrap of paper torn out of a notebook that said 10 ringgit on it. And that's the only, like, you see what I mean? Like, if you go to the airport, you get a luggage tag on your bag, but on your ticket is a number and a QR code and a barcode. You can scan that barcode and it connects to that bag. But for the ferry company, there is nothing. They did put a tag on the bag, but you don't get anything else except this little piece of paper that says 10 ringgit on it. Anyway, I worked my way. I've done it before, as I said. I've done this, so it wasn't easy, but at least I kind of knew that something, as long as you waited long enough, something would happen. And eventually it did happen. And my luggage disappeared, and I could only hope that eventually I would see it once again. The rest of the process was kind of equally confusing. Again, there's no way to know what the system is, but you just have to have confidence that there is a system and that they're not going to forget about you, in particular if you're a foreigner and you stand out. Because there is a lot of shouting, a lot of yelling, a lot of information being shouted by staff, but it's all being shouted in Malay or Bahasa Indonesian or Malaysian, so not in English, so I don't know what anybody is talking about. And at one point, everybody got up and kind of rushed into a big line to go through the doors into the dock building. So I got into that line with them, thinking, I don't know, people are lining up, I better get in the line. And then I'm moving through the line, but then ahead of me I see an Indomal fast ferry woman kind of looking, and she sees me, and then she's like waving at me and going, come, 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 come. So I guess I had to do something different. So I had to fight my way out of the line, which wasn't easy. So I got all the way out of the line, went all the way around and fought my way up to her. But because I was a foreigner, and of course I'm the only foreigner on the boat, she had to scan my visa and my passport. And so she had this special scanner there, and then she took my passport and then my visa, and she's scanning everything. And then she says, this has to be sent to Indonesian immigration in advance. Basically, they have to confirm that I have a visa on arrival, that I already have my visa for Indonesia. And then once she did it, I was allowed to go in, but then you don't go to immigration. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I get to go through immigration, get on the boat. But it doesn't work that way. Everybody had to go into this very small room. And again, there's nothing in that room. It's very hot, very stuffy. There isn't nearly enough space for all the people that crowded in there. All the seats were taken, then all the standing room was taken. There's a little bit of panic, a bit of stress in the air. A lot of people carrying a lot of heavy luggage still. And then basically it was a waiting room, and we all had to wait in this room until they called us for immigration. But I didn't know how long we would be in there or when they would call us. And we ended up stuck in that room for a long time. And there's no bathrooms in there, nothing like that. So, I didn't sit down, so I was standing up the whole time. Got quite tired, quite hot, quite sweaty. And then eventually people started yelling things, and people started moving towards the door, and I heard in English, VIP. So I guess pre-boarding or pre-immigration for VIP passengers had started. So I joined that group, and then we all got into a line at immigration. And there's an unusually a large amount of yelling going on. Because I've noticed this in the past on these ferry trips, that the Indonesians tend to be a little bit more casual when it comes to lineups. They don't believe in them. They just rush to the front, and they don't really follow procedures. And the Malaysians are aware of this and is constantly yelling at them about what they are supposed to do. Simple things like stand in line, one at a time. And they have a rule where you can't have a bag on your back. Like I had my knapsack on my back, and I knew from experience that you can't. So when I got up to go through immigration, you have to take the bag off your back and hold it in your hand. I assume for customs or security. But anyway, a lot of the Indonesians don't know this, so the staff are constantly going up and down the line and yelling at people to take the knapsacks off their back. And of course, you're supposed to wait behind the yellow line and not leave any gaps in the lineup, just normal lineup etiquette, especially for immigration. And the Indonesians don't generally follow these rules, but the Malaysians are sticklers about rules. So you got a bit of a culture clash there. And all the Malaysians, the officers and the guards and the Indo Mall staff are roaming around yelling at everybody all the time, you know, back behind the yellow line, behind the yellow line. And then other people, for some reason, the person ahead of them goes to immigration, but they won't move forward to fill up the gap. So they'll actually be 3 or 4 feet away from the yellow line. And that's not allowed either. You have to be right at the yellow line. So the Indonesians get yelled at because they go over the yellow line. Back, 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 back. Go, hey, you got to get behind the yellow line, behind the yellow line. And then they get yelled at because they're not close enough to the yellow line, right? And I kind of pride myself on figuring out what the systems are and what the rules are, and I'm trying very hard not to make any mistakes, you know. So I'm like a good student that way, and I make sure I have my knapsack. And they have rules, of course, no smartphones, no cameras, no video. I'm being very careful to keep my smartphone away, because I think with the signs, what they mean is you can't take pictures with your smartphone. You can't take video with your smartphone because of security reasons. So technically, you should be allowed to look at your phone. Like if you're standing in line, you're not doing anything wrong. You should be able to just look at your phone, send messages, do whatever. But no, the Malaysians are sticklers about this. The sign says no smartphones, so we mean no smartphones. And I'm aware of this, so I'm very careful. I leave my smartphone in my pocket. I'm like, I got no smartphone, don't yell at me, don't yell at me. But of course, all the Indonesians, they're addicted to their phones like everyone in the world, and they can't help it. It's instinctive. Up comes their phone, and there's, hey, phone. Yeah, you gotta put your phone away, put your phone away. So there's yelling and shouting going on. I finally get to the front, and yeah, immigration was fine. They asked me a lot of questions, very specific questions. And I'm aware of this, and I always have my answers ready. Who are you? Where are you from? Where are you going? How long were you in Malaysia? Where did you stay? What did you do? Where did you go? And they're basically trying to catch you out in a lie. Like I'm saying to the guy, I'm presenting myself as a tourist, which I am. I'm here on a tourist visa. I am behaving like a tourist. And they're trying to make sure you really are a tourist, that you are not working illegally, doing something illegal. So they're just asking you questions. And if you really are a tourist, you should be able to answer these questions easily. It's like, oh, so what did you enjoy in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur? What tourist attractions did you visit? Where did you go? What did you see? Do you know people here? And then I have I just tell the truth, basically. The truth will set you free. And then in the past, I have run into trouble at this dock because it's unusual for a foreigner to go through that dock. And I got called out of line for an interview to prove that I am a tourist. And then all of my media helps me out, because I show them all the pictures on my phone. It's like, scroll away, like hundreds and hundreds of selfies at Batu Caves, Bukit Dinding hiking trail. Go to my YouTube channel, you can see all the things I've been doing. And then I can talk very knowledgeably about the life of a tourist, and I can show them online proof of my life behaving like a tourist. And then they're eventually, oh, okay, cool, you're a tourist, and you get you have to scan your fingerprints, and away you go. So, but yeah, by then I was exhausted, absolutely exhausted. I think my alarm went off at 5:30, and I'd pretty much been on the move and busy right up until that point. And this might have been like 9 a.m. that I was going through immigration, and all that time I was surrounded by the chaos and the heat and the crowding of the dock area. So it was a pretty tiring experience. A lot of fun, an adventure, but yeah, I thought more than once that I really shouldn't have waited so long. Had I taken the boat 1 week earlier, everything would have been more casual, quieter, less crowded. And that's what I should have done. But I just, I guess I was being lazy. And I was enjoying my time in Kuala Lumpur so much that, I thought, I'll just stay for another week. Big mistake. I didn't know that the end of Ramadan was thundering in my direction, right? Yeah, when I went out onto the dock to walk out to the boat, I was a little bit taken aback because the weather had changed. It had become very stormy, very windy. It was starting to rain. So I thought the trip by boat was going to be a very rough journey because it looked like storms had moved in. But it turned out it was only in Malaysia. Once we got out into the Malacca Strait, it was beautiful, sunny skies, calm seas. So it was a really nice trip. I guess there were a couple of interesting notes about the ferry ride. One is that this boat didn't have a very large deck. When I first started getting VIP tickets, I really enjoyed them because the VIP section on the top of the boat on the second floor was very small, and then it's probably like 1/3 of the boat and 2/3 of the deck was wide open. So there was a huge amount of room out there, and if you wanted to take video with a 360 camera or do something, you could spend a lot of time out there. There was like so much room. But on this boat, most of the upper deck was all seating, VIP seating, and the outer deck was very small, like room for 7 or 8 people at most. And there were always Indonesians back there because it's a smoking area. You can't smoke in the ferry, of course. So the outer deck, you can't hang out there. I went out there one time on this boat ride just to shoot a little bit of video. But I didn't hang out there. You couldn't. There isn't enough room, and everybody out there is smoking. And a lot of the Indonesian men, they spend the entire trip out there. They just sit down and they just smoke the entire journey, 5 hours out there. So there just isn't a lot of room. When I first got on the boat, I guess I was one of the very first to get on because I was in the VIP section and I was at the front of the line when we left the room. And I went through immigration pretty quickly. So I was one of the very first on the boat. And the VIP section didn't fill up for a long time. And I started thinking, maybe I'll get lucky and the whole VIP section will be largely empty. That didn't make any sense to me because it did say the boat was sold out. But it was empty for a long time. But the way things turned out, we didn't even leave until 11:30. So it was scheduled to leave at 10, but for whatever reason, I think it might have been the amount of luggage, the number of people, and maybe other problems, so we were delayed, and we didn't leave until 11:30. So in fact, my whole morning before the boat even left went from 5:30 until 11:30, and I was at the dock. I think in the video that I shot, I said I was there at 7, but I think I got there at 7:30. And then the boat finally left at 11:30. So I was at the dock and on the boat for 4 hours from 7:30 until 11:30 before the journey even began. So I was exhausted before the 5-hour boat ride even started. But by the time we did leave the dock, every seat was taken. Like in the VIP section, every single seat was taken. And there seemed to be some confusion as well. So, like the guy who sat, I got a window seat, and then a young man sat beside me, and he barricaded himself in, and I was a bit annoyed by that. Again, the huge amounts of luggage. I don't know how people get away with this, because even in airports, it puzzles me, where when I go through all the security screenings, and they're weighing the bags, and they're taking all the bags and putting them into those measurement cubicles, that all seems to be happening. But then when I get past, get into immigration and customs, I see people all around me with huge backpacks, like full-sized 40-liter backpacks. And I'm like, how did you get through like I make sure I've got the smallest knapsack I have, and they're looking at it and they're measuring it and they're like examining it and like, okay, you can go through. And yet I see all these people with huge bags. And it's the same thing with the ferry. You're allowed to have one bag, and it has to be less, they have it pretty generous, they say less than 9 kilograms. But the guy who sat beside me, I didn't count them, but I'm guessing he had 5 bags. And it took him forever to get settled. He took one bag, put it sort of under the seat in front of him, another bag sitting on his feet, and then a bag on top of that bag, and another bag on his chest, and another bag on top of that bag. So he basically built the Great Wall of luggage. So I was like, oh, for Pete's sake, because I know I'm gonna want to go outside to take video. I'm gonna want to get up to go get a cup of coffee. I'm gonna have to get up to go to the bathroom. And now every single time, how am I gonna get past this guy with all his luggage, right? There's no overhead compartments or anything like that. So I was a little bit annoyed with this guy. And then, just as we got underway, some of the Indo-Mall fast ferry staff came and talked to him and kicked him out of that seat. And apparently he had to show tickets and things like that. And I guess he wasn't allowed to be in the VIP section. And maybe they oversold the boat. I think it would have been pretty hard to keep track of all the tickets for this boat. But anyway, they basically said to the guy, no, you got to get out of this seat. And another man came on, and he sat beside me. And he was a better seatmate, but he still wasn't perfect because he was a big guy. For an Indonesian man, he was big. Not my height, but close to my height, and he was thick. He wasn't fat or anything, but he was a big man, and he basically occupied that whole area. And as a lot of large men are capable of doing, he could go to sleep like that. I'm so jealous of people that can do that. The guy basically sat down beside me, blocked me in, and then I kind of looked at him and I made some pleasantries, do you speak English? He said no. We communicated with Google Maps or Google Translate a little bit, chatted, and then he was like, oh, nice to meet you. Then he went, he was just out like a light. I mean, he closes his eyes and his brain turns off. And I'm so jealous of men who are able to do that. For me, it's a war. Like going to sleep is a nonstop war that I have to wage against my own brain and body because it does not want to turn off. I have so much trouble going to sleep. But this guy, he's like, oh, nice to meet you. It's like, oh, for Pete's sake. So he slept the entire time. And then the times that that meant basically I hardly ever got up. I think I got up twice. Once to go to the bathroom, just one time, and once to go outside to shoot video. And those are the only times I got up because he blocked me in basically. And then every time I did it, he was sound asleep, and I'm just sort of like, again, if my eyes are closed in a seat, even if I'm like drowsing, like I'm drowsy or something, like half asleep, I'm aware of everything going on around me. You just touch me. Oh, you want to get out? Okay. But this guy, nothing on earth would wake him up. I grabbed his shoulder, a little bit at first, then I don't want to wake the guy up. It's like, but man, I don't have a choice. I got to get past you. And so anyway, I'm shaking, and he would not wake up. So eventually I just stood up, and then I tried to use my giraffe legs to just try to step all the way over him without like hitting him in the face with my butt or anything like that. And I had to do that both times. It was pretty funny. And other than that, I'm not sure what else happened. We got a meal, rice, and they put all these, it was like fish in a bag with fish sauce and rice. And whenever they serve me fish on that boat, I usually don't eat it because I'm not I can't fight with all of that, the fish bones and the fish head and it's just like, and you try to open up that bag with the elastic band, and fish sauce is just gonna go flying. So basically all I do, I eat the rice I just ate all the rice and I sealed it up with the fish inside. I didn't open up the fish bag. I just ate plain rice. And that was good enough for me. And then, we went 5 hours heading to Tanjung Balai. And I've done the trip a few times, very enjoyable. And when you go upriver towards Tanjung Balai, it's very beautiful, very interesting. A lot of like mangrove swamps and things like that. Fishing boats everywhere. I love the fishing boats here. And we arrived at the dock in Tanjung Balai. And you would think at some point I could tell a story that made it sound like I was enjoying myself, having a good time. And I am. Like all of this stuff I'm talking about, I really enjoyed the experience because it's an adventure, it's real life. But it is all profoundly uncomfortable, confusing, chaotic, and stressful from beginning to end. To be a foreigner like me taking a local boat like this. That's just how it is. And that's why I go to these places. So yeah, that's just the way it is. But anyway, I'm just saying it would be nice to say, oh, when we arrived in Tanjung Balai, it was so amazing. People were, this was so easy. But no, it was not like that at all. It was just more of the same, more sludge, I guess. And I didn't understand anything that was going on because we arrived and then the VIP people were allowed to get off first. But even before we were getting off, all the luggage started to pour out of the boat. Mountains and mountains of luggage. And they're doing weird things with the luggage I didn't understand. Some of the smaller bags, they were putting on the dock, lining it up, so it looked like people would be able to get their own bag. You can just see it. Oh, there's my bag, and you grab it. Other bags were being put onto these big carts and being pushed into the dock building, a ferry terminal building. But I didn't see a lot of, I couldn't figure out a system for any of this. And then as we were getting off, I saw a lot of the other passengers, not all of them, but a lot of them were singling out a porter because there were dozens and dozens of porters working on the dock, carrying all this luggage. And they would get one of the porters and they would give them their slip of paper. Like I mentioned, they tore a piece of paper out of a notebook with my name scrawled on it with 10 ringgit written on it. That's all. And they were handing that piece of paper to the porters as if the porters could use that piece of paper to find their luggage and get it for them. And then of course they would pay them, give them a tip for that service. So I thought, oh, maybe that's what I'm supposed to do. But how in the world can they use that piece of paper to find my luggage? It's impossible. So I couldn't figure out that system. Oh man, this is a long story. But yeah, so I stood in line for immigration and like a big lineup. I waited to be the very last VIP passenger to get off the boat. So even though I could get off first with the VIP people, I was the last VIP person. So I was at the very back of the immigration lineup. And then while I was standing there waiting, a local man came up to me. I didn't know who he was. He just came up to me and says, oh, who are you and what is your name and do you have a visa and can I see your visa please? So he was speaking to me like he was a immigration official. They had no uniform on or anything, but I thought, well, I don't know, sure. And I got out my printout, my paper printout of my visa. Here's my visa. And he's looking at it, he's examining it. He seemed to be an official man. But then he said, oh, do you need a ride from the dock? Like, how are you getting to where are you going? And I says, oh, I'm going to the Malahayati Hotel. He says, oh, well, do you need a ride there? So then I assumed he was a becak driver, looking for customers. But then if he's a becak driver, why is he asking to see my visa? Anyway, I never did figure out exactly who this guy was, but his name was Gunun, And he stuck with me the whole time. And then I agreed to go with him. He said he had a motorcycle, and he says, yeah, for 50,000 rupiah, which is a good price, I'll drive you to your hotel. And I was like, yeah, sure, sounds good to me. Becak drivers would probably charge about 100,000. So at first I thought he was a Becak driver, and he said 50,000. And I thought, yeah, it's a good deal. Sure, I'll do it. But it turns out he had a motorcycle, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is not quite as good as a Becak for me. But anyway, I went through a security, they have this big x-ray machine. So I took my carry-on bag, ran it through the x-ray machine. Then I went through immigration. That worked out okay. A lot of questions. And again, I was ready. The guy was just trying to figure out if I really was a tourist. And again, I had the names. He says, okay, so you're here on a holiday, you're a tourist. What would you like to do while you're here? Where are you going to go? And then, if you start hemming and hawing, like, and you can't think of anything, that's a signal to them that they need to investigate you. Well, okay, if you're a tourist, how come you don't know the names of any tourist attractions? So of course he asked me, and I'm like, yeah, well, I'm going to stay here in Tanjung Balai for a couple of nights, maybe a week, and then I want to go up to Lake Toba. I want to go to Sibolga, and then he mentions the islands off the coast. I'm like, well, I'd like to go to the islands near Sibolga, but they're very expensive. I might go to Banda Aceh and Takengon. There's this mountain village called Takengon I always wanted to go to. So he was pretty impressed with my knowledge of Sumatra. He's like, okay, I believe you. You're a tourist. And then, I got I got stickered into the country. That was the easy part. The difficult part was getting luggage. And I knew this was going to be a problem because the last time I did it with my bicycle, I think I was there at least for 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours, waiting for my bags. Because as far as I can tell, there's no system at all. There's nothing. Like, it's not like an airport where there's a luggage carousel, you wait for your bag to show up and then you get it off. There is nothing. This whole dock building is so badly designed. There's no room. It's not big enough to handle a ship this size with this many people and this much luggage. And then to get your luggage, I can't tell you what the system is. All you can do is stand around and wait until, like in the lobby, basically in the lobby of the ferry terminal building, you just hang out there. And the last time, as I said, I think I waited about 3 hours, and I would go into the building from time to time. I would walk all the way in, walk all the way to the immigration, customs, x-ray security area, and I'm looking around for my bag, and no, it's not here yet. Looking around for my bicycle, no bicycle. And I go back out to the lobby, and I'm waiting and waiting. Another hour goes by. I go back in, I'm looking around, I'm looking and looking. And they had this system where even though you already paid for your luggage in Malaysia to get on the boat, you have to pay a second time in Indonesia. So all the luggage coming off the boat was being weighed a second time, and you pay again in Indonesia. And that caused a lot more crowding and slow and a lot of sludge. And then you just wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And I guess my bicycle, because it was special, they held it back until the very, very end. And I was there for hours and hours and hours waiting. And this time I only had one small bag, but it was the same basic situation where I just ended up waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And the guy who was helping me out, Gunun, he kept trying to help me, and I never did figure out what his role was. It was a bit of a mystery because he told me he worked as an accountant at a bank, and he got out an ID, like on a cord, neck ID, and he showed it to me as if it was official bank ID, but it didn't look like official bank ID to me. But he seemed very concerned about convincing me that he's a real guy, he's legitimate. He's not a scam artist, he's not trying to rip me off, don't worry. I'm just trying to help you. And yeah, I mean, he seemed like a perfectly nice guy, but I could not figure out who he was because his bank ID didn't look official. It looked like something he cut out of a piece of cardboard and stuffed in there. But then on his phone, he had my visa, a copy of my Indonesian visa on arrival, a copy of my passport, and he had a copy of the ship manifest, like how many passengers were on board, all the details about the boat. And he showed me on his phone, like, see, I'm official, I have all this information. Here's your passport, here's your visa, here's the ship manifest. And I was like, well, like, you work at the dock, you work for Indomal, or you work for immigration? He said, no, I'm an accountant at a bank. And I'm like, well, then why do you have all these documents? I couldn't figure out anything. Again, you'll never know what's going on. That's just the way it is. And I told him a number of times, it's going to take a long time for me to get my luggage, so you don't have to wait with me. I mean, if you want to go, you go home. Like, I don't really, I mean, I'm going to be here a long time. I felt guilty that he was waiting so long. And he kept saying, no, I'm here to help you. I want to help you, and I will stay with you. And he kept asking me for my piece of paper that had my name, this ripped out of a notebook with pencil on it. And he says, oh, do you have that? Do you have that? Do you have that? And I says, yeah, I got that. And he kept giving it to porters. And he's like, he'd give a porter, it's like, can you, and the porter would disappear with my little piece of paper, which is my only connection to my bag. And then the porter would just come back. He's like, and hand it back to him. He's like, and they talked, and I have no idea. He'd give it to another porter. The porter would disappear. He'd come back. I can't, I have no know what's going on. And this went on for a long time. And then eventually, we were getting towards the end. I mean, lots of people got their luggage. Lots of people had passed through, but my bag was still nowhere to be seen. And then Gunun, he spoke to like a guard and said, like, okay, is it okay if the foreigner, can he go back to the dock? Can he go back through customs and immigration and everything and go back out to the boat and look for his bag? And then they talked about it. It's okay, yeah, he can do that. And then they pulled the ropes apart and let me go through the barrier. And then I'm back out on the dock, and there was luggage all from one end of the dock to the other, and I'm looking, and I don't see my bag anywhere. And I look towards the boat, and there's still mountains of luggage being flung out of the hold of the ship. And from a distance, I recognized my bag, the color. And there it was. It's like, there it is. And then it was buried in other bags, but I knew my bag was down there. So then I walked all the way down the gangplank, all the way back to the boat itself, where all the luggage was piled up. And then I was trying to get somebody's attention. And it's like, my bag is there, my bag is there. And they had to move aside all this other luggage. And they finally pulled my bag out. It's like, yes, finally, there it is. And then I could take it and go. Was this the second time I had done it? No, I think that was the first time. Anyway, so then I had to go back through customs again, and they had to scan my carry-on bag, and I had to go through, because they didn't know I'd already gone through it once. But anyway, so I went through there, and I finally had my bag, and I was ready to go. We've jumped ahead in time. It's now the next morning, so it's Wednesday, April 2nd, about 10 o'clock in the morning. Coffee number 2 has just been prepared. I just ran out of voice yesterday and ran out of time to finish the story of my trip from Malaysia to here in Tanjung Balai. So yeah, I think I left off when I was at the dock, and I'd gone through immigration, customs, gone through the long process of getting my bags. My one bag, I had one small bag, getting my luggage. Took a long time. I think it took an hour and a half. I was looking at some of the photos that I took and the video that I shot, and looking at the time codes. I think it took somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours to finally get my bag, and I had to go looking for it on my own. And if I hadn't gone looking for it on my own, I don't know when it would have shown up. Probably I would have topped over 3 hours of waiting just for my bag to suddenly appear. And it could be because I think I got to the dock in Port Dickson pretty early, and my bag was put on the boat quite early. So first one on, last one off sort of thing. So it would take a long time for my bag to ever appear. So it was a good thing that I went looking for it. And then when I finally had my bag, I left the building with Gunun, the man who sort of adopted me. And as I said, I had no idea who he was really, what his role was, why he was even at the dock, why he had the ship manifest on his phone and all of my personal details on his phone. That didn't make any sense to me at all, because I kept asking him about his job, like, what do you do here at the dock? And he kept insisting, well, nothing. I work for a bank. I'm an accountant. So anyway, who he was and what he was doing really didn't make any sense to me. But he did seem to have some sort of an official position, because when I was waiting for my bag, I was standing where I wasn't supposed to stand. I found this little cubbyhole, like next to a wall, where I could sort of lean against the wall, not in anybody's way, and I was right beside the X-ray machine. So all the bags being unloaded from the ship, they all had to be funneled through this X-ray machine. So I was watching to see when my bag appeared. And then there were these other people would occasionally try to stand near me as well, but they weren't nearly as careful about not getting in the way. Again, I kind of mentioned that the Indonesians have a rather casual attitude towards lineups and public spaces. They just do whatever they want without really thinking about whether they're in the way or following the rules. So these people would stand there near where I was, trying to watch for their bags as well, but then these guards would come along and shoo them out because they were blocking the way. It's like one narrow hallway, just one narrow hallway, and all the bags from the ship had to be pushed through this narrow space on these giant carts, and all the porters had to go back and forth through this space. And not only that, I was on one side of the hallway leaning against the wall, and then right on the other side of this hallway was a customs office where people had to register their smartphones. They have to register the IMEI number of their phones. And I don't know why this would be, but a lot of the Indonesians had to do this. So there was a big crowd of people inside this office, filling all the chairs. And on the outside of this office, there were 2 rows of seats, maybe, I don't know, 12 seats in total. And there was like a waiting area. And all those seats were taken, and then there were other people standing around, standing room only, waiting. So even though this one narrow hallway was the only way for luggage to come off the boat and head out to the lobby, that's where they put the waiting area for IMEI, for customs. So they blocked half the hallway. I mean, it was almost impossible for the porters to get through this area. It was so crowded. So of course, security guards and people in the dock, when they saw people clustering there waiting for their bags, blocking the way, they would shoo them. Like, no, you can't stay here, you can't, and they would push them into the lobby area. And then people, they would try to sneak back, and then they get kicked out again. New people would show up. It was a constant battle. But they never kicked me out. They looked at me, and you could see that they were going to, but Gunun was standing right beside me. And then he turned to the security guy and says, no, he's okay. The foreigner is okay, let him stay here. And I was very careful not to block anybody's way. And then the craziest things would happen. It really was a bit of a circus. There was one time this guy, a porter came through with one of the carts piled to the heavens with these huge bags. They were like bales, like cotton bales or hay bales, huge, I don't know, they're like merchandise that has been, I'm not talking about suitcases, but big bundles, much, much larger than any suitcase. And this porter went by, and he was actually pulling the cart behind him. He wasn't pushing it forward, he was pulling it behind him, and then one of these bales fell off. He saw it fall, it landed and just sort of hit the floor and was lying there, and he kind of looked at it, And he just kept going, and he left it there. So we had this giant bale was now blocking the entire hallway, and nobody could get through anymore. So the other porters who were trying to get through, now their way was blocked. And then Gunun, I think, I did it as well. The people started pushing this bale around, like trying to move it out of the way, but they would only push it a little bit, like a few inches or something, and it kind of got close to me, and I thought, well, maybe I can move it out of the way. So I kind of reached out with my foot to push it to the side, and I couldn't budge the thing. It was so heavy. I mean, I could have bent down and picked it up and manhandled it, but I didn't know what to do with it. Like, the porter's gonna come looking for it, I assume. But anyway, yeah, it was really, really heavy, and it was blocking the way. And it just laid there for the longest time. It just sat there and just sat there and just sat there, blocking this whole hallway. And then eventually, I don't know how long it was, but to me it seemed like a very long time. I thought the porter had just forgotten about it, like, who cares whether a bag fell off or not. It was that kind of environment. But eventually the same porter did come back, and then he grabbed it and then dragged it back into the lobby. But I mean, it was just, yeah, it was a real circus. But anyway, I was talking about Gunun because he did seem to have some sort of official capacity where he could override the security guards. When they tried to move me, he would stop them and go, no, he's okay, he's with me. And then Gunun started moving people along. So when people started loitering in this area and causing a bottleneck, he went up to them and says, no, you can't wait here. Go. And I started to feel guilty that everybody else got kicked out, but I was allowed to stay. But at the same time, I mean, I needed my luggage. If I went out into the lobby area, I knew I was going to be out there for hours waiting. I was like, Anyway, I took advantage of Gunun's protection, and I stayed where I was. And then, as I talked about already, he talked to the guards and got permission for me to go all the way back to the boat and go looking for my bag, and then I eventually found it. So then I'm leaving with Gunun, and the other times that I've done this, as I said, as you leave the dock building, you have to reweigh your bag again, and you have to pay a second time in Indonesia. I don't know who gets that money, but anyway, that's the normal process. But because I was with Gunun, he just walked me right out of the building. We just walked out. So I didn't sign out, I didn't reweigh my bag, I didn't pay anything at all. And so I just went with Gunun, and then we left from the dock area. There's a big fence there with a very narrow gate and a couple of hundred people, like mainly becak drivers, people waiting for family members to emerge. They're all crowded around out there. So it's kind of a tight, crowded area. And then I went through that with Gunun. And at that point, I still wasn't entirely sure how we would be traveling. I was kind of hoping that it would be a becak, because a becak is slower, but I can sit down, it's more comfortable, there's room for my bag. And then Gunun, but now he had a motorcycle. He kept saying motorcycle, but I was sort of hoping it was a scooter, because quite often a scooter has a flat area at the front. So I was assuming I could put my bag down on the floor of the scooter, and then I could have my knapsack on my back, and that would be a comfortable way to sit. But it turned out it was an actual motorcycle, so there was nowhere to put my bag, like nothing at all. And I think Gunun, when he offered me the ride, he was assuming I had a backpack. And I kept showing him, I showed him a picture of my bag, and I told him, no, I don't have a backpack. I have a luggage I have to hold in my arms. I can't wear it. So, and I kept saying to him, so, is it okay on your motorcycle? And he kept saying, yeah, no problem. But it turns out it was a little bit of a problem, because it wasn't a huge motorcycle, but I mean, it was a motorcycle and I could sit on the back. It had enough power for him and me, like for a driver and a passenger, but there was nowhere for me to put my bag. So the only thing I could do was perch on the back of the motorcycle and take my luggage and put it under my arm, like sling it under my arm and hold it. And then I also wanted to take video. At the very beginning of the ride, I even said on videos, like, yeah, I have to put my GoPro away because I have to hold my bag under my arm, and that I have to use my other hand to hold on to gunun or hold on to something on the motorcycle just for safety. So I did say in the video, I'm not going to be able, I'm going to have to put my GoPro away. But I knew it would be interesting to take video, so in the end, I did both. I held onto the bag under my arm, and I fired up my GoPro. So in fact, it was quite dangerous. If he ever hit the throttle hard, I would have gone flying off the back of the motorbike because I wasn't holding on. And it was very uncomfortable and very tiring. Even my legs got exhausted. I don't know what it is. Whenever I'm sitting as a passenger on a motorcycle, you put your feet on the foot pegs, and his foot pegs, both of them were broken. So they were snapped and angling down. So I really had to use the muscles in my leg to sort of pull inwards in order to keep my feet on the foot pegs and stay on the motorcycle. And then I've got the GoPro in this arm, and I've got my luggage under here. And we're like driving through the busy streets of Tanjung Balai. It was pretty crazy. And yeah, it was a pretty long ride as it turned out. And my arm couldn't do it anymore. My arm became exhausted, and I kept having to shift the weight of the bag over and over and over. And no matter what I did, I couldn't find a comfortable way to hold it. And all I could do was like hold on to it for as long as I could. And then I had to reach over with this hand that was holding the GoPro and then grab the rope that was around my bag and kind of pull it up and kind of get it under my arm again. And then I had to hold on to this hand and I was constantly adjusting and adjusting and adjusting to try and hold on to this bag. And then after a while, my arm basically had no strength left, like nothing at all. I could barely hold on at all. And then I was thinking ahead to, okay, I know Tanjung Balai quite well, so I know exactly where we are. And then I'm calculating ahead, like how much longer am I going to have to hold on? Am I going to be able to do it or not? And I was calculating, and then at one point my GoPro battery died, and I asked Gunun to pull over to the side of the road so I could replace the battery. But more than that, I just needed a rest. I needed to get off the motorbike because my legs were in agony, this arm was in agony, my back was sore. It was just a really uncomfortable ride. But anyway, then we went in a weird direction. I noticed that right away. We didn't go the normal way, and I thought, that's kind of weird. I hope he knows where he's going. And then we got to the main road where I know we're supposed to turn left to go to the Malahayati Hotel, but he was angling the motorcycle to the right. And I was like, what's going on? And then I did say to Gunun while we're riding, he didn't speak English very much or hardly at all, but I did say, like, Malahayati, and I'm indicating that way, that we're going in the wrong direction, you have to turn left. And then he says, oh yeah, I know, but I want to take you to meet my family first. And then my heart sank when he said that, because I felt like I was now kind of losing control. I had no strength left in my arm at all. I was exhausted, a very, very long day. I was not in the mood to go off and have some big social event. I'd love to meet your family, but can we do this tomorrow? I really need to get to my hotel. I need to check in. The sun was going down. It was getting dark. They're waiting for me. Going to meet his family after a long travel day was not what I had signed up for. I just needed to get to my hotel. But there's no way to convey all of that. There really wasn't anything I could do. I had been kidnapped, and there was nothing I could do about it. So I just let him go. And I was hoping that his house wasn't that far away. And I just made up my mind that, okay, I'll meet his family, fine, we'll do that, we'll have a chat. But if it starts to look like it's going to turn into a big meal, a big, end of Ramadan celebration or something, and, it's going to be a whole long evening, then I'm going to put my foot down. Like if I could see food being prepared and people arriving and it was going to turn into a big night, then I was going to say, no, sorry, I can't do this. I'm happy to meet your family. Hello, shake everybody's hand. We take pictures together. But, 30 minutes, I got to go to the hotel. I'm done for the day. I'm exhausted. But when we did get to his house, it wasn't that far away, as it turned out. Barely made it, though, with my arm. And then, there was almost nobody there. It wasn't a big deal. I met his wife, and it turned out his wife used to be a teacher, and she spoke English quite well. And it turns out that Gunun does this all the time, that he knows when there's going to be a foreigner on the boat, because somehow or other he gets the visa information sent to him. And when he sees a foreigner is coming, he makes sure he's at the dock, and then he says, oh, can I give you a ride to your hotel? And then he takes you to his house because he wants his wife to be able to practice her English. So that's part of the deal. He'll drive you to your hotel, but my wife gets 30 minutes of English practice as well. Just kind of, these are the things that happen when you're overseas. She was very nice, and we sat in their living room. It was very hot, though, no air conditioning, no fan running. And again, in this part of the world, people don't believe in cold water generally. I've in a lot of Asian countries, they believe that cold water is unhealthy, that hot water is better for your health. So quite often I'll be hot and sweaty and somebody will say, oh, would you like a glass of water? And I'm thinking, oh man, I'd love a glass of water. Thinking it's going to be a big tumbler with lots of ice and oh, it's going to be so good. And it's always hot water. And it's like, oh, for Pete's sake, But anyway, the water that I was served there was not hot, but it was like room temperature, warm water and stuff like that. So while I was sitting there chatting with his wife, and I think Gunun took video the whole time that I was there chatting with his wife, sitting on these little like sofas or benches in his living room. He was standing in the middle of the room holding his smartphone, and he was standing there for such a long time. I eventually figured, oh, he's not taking pictures. He must be recording the whole conversation on video. So, So anyway, I was there for maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And then Gunun drove me the rest of the way to Malahayati. They were waiting for me here. I got my room. I'm back in the same room as before. There was a little bit of an issue when I was moving in, because when I was here before, I had trouble because there was no Wi-Fi. There is Wi-Fi in the hotel, but it doesn't reach this room. So it's a big problem for me as a YouTuber. I need Wi-Fi. So this time I tried to get a better room. I asked them, okay, I would like a single room again. That's their cheapest room. But can I get a different one? I need one that's closer to the router that has better Wi-Fi. But we went around and around and around having this conversation using Google Translate. And no matter what I said, I couldn't get them to figure out or understand what it is I was asking for. But it turned out that they kept putting me in this room because they knew I wanted air conditioning, and this is the only room, the only single room with air conditioning. That's what they told me. So even if another room has Wi-Fi, there's no air conditioning, and there's no guarantee, because all these single rooms are on the outside of the hotel. So my balcony faces, my window and my door and the balcony faces the street. And then the hotel is behind me here. So and all the single rooms are here on the outside. And I don't think any of them have Wi-Fi. So in the end, I ended up here back in this room. Air conditioner, which I need. And I've talked about this before, that you can ask for a room without air conditioning thinking you're saving money. But I do find in the long run, in the modern era, that's a false economy. You're not really saving any money in the long run, because when you're in a room without air conditioning, it's so hot and humid, your electronics suffer. Things break. So sure, you didn't pay for air conditioning, but your laptop breaks down because of the heat and humidity, or your cameras do, or your bags, the plastic of my GoPro mounts, everything wears out because of the heat and humidity. So you end up paying more in the long run. So I find it's better to get air conditioning, and it's not that much more expensive. Since that day, I've been in Tanjung Balai for a week, and yeah, time just goes by so quickly. Yeah, I mean, one entire day was pretty much spent getting my smartphones sorted out, because I had to go to the Telkomsel office because all of my phones were blocked by customs because of the IMEI number registration system here. So I had to set aside a day to get all that organized, to go to Telkomsel. And of course I had to edit the video about my ferry trip. I haven't been shooting a lot of video lately when I was in Kuala Lumpur for various reasons. I had other things to do, but I wasn't doing a lot of video-worthy activities in KL, and so I didn't have a backlog of video to work on, but I did have I did decide to shoot a video on the ferry trip to get here. So I recorded all of that on video, but I needed to edit that video, and that takes a day and a half, and then I have to upload that video. So before you know it, you just arrived, but the 3 days have gone by where all you're doing is editing video, uploading video, and getting settled in and getting organized. So 3 days goes by just like that. And that video I uploaded using Wi-Fi. I tried to do it from my room here because occasionally there's like a trickle, just a trickle of Wi-Fi. And I'm thinking, I don't know, if I just leave my laptop sitting here for hour after, probably day after day, maybe eventually it will finish the uploading. But nah, that wasn't gonna happen. So what I did was I sat in the hotel courtyard. So I grabbed my laptop and a cup of coffee and a tablet and my smartphones, and I went out into the courtyard, the central courtyard, and I just sat on a bench out there and set up my laptop. And then I have line of sight on the router, and I just stayed out there for 4 hours and used the Wi-Fi to upload the video. So it was a possibility, but it was really bad. Like I said, I think my laptop sitting out there in that heat ends up damaging the electronics. So you really don't want to do that if you can help it. And I was just soaked with sweat, just sitting there for 4 hours. It was so uncomfortable. It's not like you're sitting in a lounge, you know. You see all these commercials for laptops and things where people are hanging out in lovely coffee shops, sipping their espresso with their thin MacBook Air M4 powered machine, and everyone is so happy. It wasn't like that at all. I was out there just sweating, and it's a hard wooden bench that I was seated on, and yeah, it's really uncomfortable. Mosquitoes eating me alive. But it was possible, so I did upload that video. But I've since uploaded 2 more videos. I was just doing it this morning, but what I end up having to do is buy mobile data. And that's always a little bit of an adventure too. I'm kind of proud of myself that I have a system figured out where I have Telkomsel SIM card, but I also have an Indonesian e-wallet called OVO. I set that up on a previous visit, and I already had money. I had like 50,000 rupiah credit in my OVO e-wallet. It was in there from before, and I know how to buy mobile data for my SIM card, but paying for it using my e-wallet. So I can do it from here in my room. I don't even have to go outside. Normally, you know, I've got to go other places and buy data and get credit and do all these. I have to go out into the real world to get these things done. But now that I have an e-wallet, I can do it. But the weird thing is, I guess it's not really weird, it's the normal thing. I'm convinced that all of these telecom companies have rigged the system. Because, for example, I had a video that I needed to upload this morning that was 9 gigabytes. So I needed to upload 9 gigabytes of data. But In order to do that, I had to buy 30 gigabytes of data to finish uploading 9 gigabytes. And I don't know why that is. I wasn't doing anything else. The laptop, trust me, was not doing anything else. It wasn't downloading anything. It wasn't running anything on Google Chrome. The laptop was doing nothing but sitting there, over there on the desk, uploading 9 gigabytes. But I kept having to buy data packages over and over and over again. So you buy 9 gigabytes to upload 9 gigabytes, but my 9 gigabyte data package went down to 0, and yet it only uploaded like 2.5 gigabytes. So where did the other 6.5 gigabytes go? I don't know. So then I have to buy another 9 gigabytes. It uploads. Now I'm up to 5 gigabytes uploaded. I got to buy another 9. So basically I had to buy 30 gigabytes of mobile data in order to upload 9 gigabytes. And it ends up being very expensive. So again, I think maybe staying in a low budget hotel is another example of false economy for a YouTuber, because you're saving money because the hotel is cheaper, but you're not getting breakfast. Like if you stayed at a nicer hotel that maybe cost twice as much, everything works, you're gonna have Wi-Fi, so you're not spending all the money on mobile data, and then maybe you're getting a nice breakfast in the morning, and maybe you're actually getting better value in the long run. But yeah, maybe Sumatra maybe is not the place for that, and Tanjung Balai definitely isn't. There isn't a lot of choice here. And I kind of like low budget hotels anyway. I love the atmosphere, like staying in a 4-star Sheraton hotel or whatever. I wouldn't be happy in those places because that's not the lifestyle I'm looking for. It's not the experience I'm looking for. You might as well be back in Toronto. If you're going to stay in a 4-star hotel or even a 3-star hotel, what's the point of being in Indonesia? It's exactly the same as a hotel back in Canada. And you're isolated from the city, you're isolated from people. There's too much comfort, too much luxury. Everything is too ordinary. There's no adventure, basically. When you stay in a low-budget hotel like this one, yeah, it's an adventure. It's not always a comfortable adventure, but it is an adventure. I mean, my gosh, the things that go on. You don't even have to go outside. Just sitting here in my room, I know I'm in Indonesia. You just know you are. I mean, I can hear the roar of Indonesia outside. And yeah, everything about this place, just you feel like you're doing something special. You're having a personal adventure that makes life worth living. And I could stay in a 4-star hotel, much more comfortable, but is it really, it's not that memorable at the same time. Anyway. But anyway, I do wish I understood what's going on with the data, right? And after I uploaded the 9 gigabyte video, I had the extended version of that same video. I'll talk about that in a minute. And the extended version was about 16 gigabytes. And I uploaded that one this morning as well. So I had to upload 16 gigabytes of data, but in order to do that, I had to buy somewhere between 40 and 50 gigabytes in order to upload 16. And I think these companies are not being very honest about what they charge you and what you get for your money. You'd think if I buy 9 gigabytes and I upload a 9 gigabyte video, should even out, right? But it doesn't. You buy 9 gigabytes of data, but you end up using 3, and the other 6, I don't know where they go. They just take it. They just don't deliver it or whatever they do. That is the advantage of being a large corporation, a big company. They can do whatever they want. So yeah, what has been going on here in Tanjung Balai? Like I said, the first 3 days, just gone, just like that. Video uploading, video editing, getting my SIM cards sorted, things like that. And the one big adventure that I've had, I mean, I shot a video when I went to Telkomsel to get my smartphone sorted and just wandering around the city, just talking and meeting people, taking selfies, typical Planet Doug rambling through the streets kind of video. Recently, I had this idea for Planet Doug where I wanted to separate everything into two different types of video, because my typical Planet Doug style is not super popular on YouTube for probably obvious reasons. My videos are too long and they're not entertaining. I'm not a very fun person, and I'm not doing the big things in a country. I'm much more interested in just ordinary day-to-day life. I like to tell the true story of what it's like being a foreigner overseas, rather than a curated, edited version showing only the highlights. But that's kind of a recipe for disaster on YouTube, because not many people are interested in that. They want to see the beautiful things in Sumatra. They want me to be on gorgeous tropical beaches sipping a pina colada, or being amazed and being astonished, and my mind was blown at all these incredible things, and flying a drone and beautiful scenery. And they want the adventure and the glamour. That is what is popular on YouTube. So I was thinking I could have the best of both worlds, and that's when I developed this Planet Doug behind the scenes channel. So I was going to, every time I just go walking around the city running errands, that video was going to be on behind the scenes. And then if I do something big, an interesting tourist activity, that will go on Planet Doug. So I was trying to make this distinction, and I have been doing that for a while, but I'm not really happy about that. It's too complicated. I end up thinking all the time, like, okay, is this a Planet Doug experience, or is this a Planet Doug behind the scenes experience? And I get mixed up now between the two, and even I don't know what's going on half the time. And that has become even more complicated when I added Patreon to my life, because Patreon is generally, my vision for Patreon was all about up-to-date, like day-to-day living. So if I'm doing something right now, I can't put that on YouTube, because it takes a couple of days at least. It can, for a lot of people, it can take months to finish a YouTube video. So you can't do it in real time generally. So Patreon, I could just do an update. I could just like post pictures from right now. Like right now, I could take a picture of me recording this video, put it on Patreon. This is what I'm doing right now. And that was my idea for a part of Patreon anyway. But now I've got Patreon doing up-to-date, real-time content. But now I've got Planet Doug behind the scenes. So what's going on with, anyway, so now I've got three things. Anyway, it's hard to keep track of mentally and physically when you divide your life this way. So when I started shooting video here, just walking around the streets, getting me ayam bakso, buying fuel for my cook stove, going to Telkomsel, things like that, I just put it all on Planet Doug. It's like, okay, this is what I'm doing today. I shot video today. This is what I've done. And I just can't worry about it too much anymore. My brain can't handle it. And interestingly enough, this makes me think of another YouTuber that I've been following. There's a Harry from the UK. I've talked about his videos a little bit in the past. His main YouTube channel is called, this will make sense in a minute why I'm so confused, but it's called We Hate the Cold. And Harry is in the middle of a scooter journey from Thailand all the way back to the UK. And in fact, he happened to be in Kuala Lumpur at the same time I was in Kuala Lumpur, and we were messaging each other on Instagram, and I was hoping to meet up with him. Fellow YouTuber, he does a lot of the same things that I do, like he rode a bicycle in Vietnam, he's riding a scooter around, and struggling with YouTube, a lot of camera problems, logistical problems, on and on and on. So I thought he and I would have a ton in common. I really wanted to meet up with him in person. I thought we'd have tons to talk about, but he didn't seem that interested in meeting up with me. We were messaging, and then we got to the point of, and I told him, yeah, I'm free anytime this week. You know, you just let me know when you're free, I can come to where you are, whatever part of the city you're in. And I kind of left the ball in his court, and he never returned it. So no matter how many times I suggested, he never really took me up on the offer. So I never did meet him in person, and he's already gone. So he's already in India. He went to Kuala Lumpur to put his scooter on a ship and shipped it to India. And then I assume he flew to India, and then he's going to meet up with his scooter and continue. And he had to do that, of course, because there's no way to drive overland. He can't bring his scooter into China for some reason, so that route is blocked. And then you can't go through Myanmar. Those borders are blocked because of the war going on there, the civil war. So anyway, the only way he could continue his journey was to skip all of that area and ship his scooter by ship and then rejoin it. So he's already left, he's gone. But I'm bringing him up because I noticed he started up a new YouTube channel, and I was very excited about that because he basically created a second YouTube channel that is his behind the scenes channel. So he ended up doing the same thing that I did, where he's making all these videos for We Hate the Cold, and these are polished, narrated, edited, documentary style. He puts a lot of time and a lot of work into them, but then he has all this extra video that he didn't use in his main video. So he's like, well, what do I do with all this extra video? And I don't really understand his logic here, though, but when he talked about it on his channel description, he said he created his new YouTube channel because he wanted to store all this other video so that he can use it in the future if he ever wants it. But that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because my understanding is if you upload video to YouTube, yes, I can download it again, but you can only download a very low resolution copy. So it's not like you're archiving your original video. So I don't think you can store video on YouTube as an archive because you don't have access to the original anymore. But anyway, that's what he said he was doing. But basically he created a second channel, and for his second YouTube channel, he called it, see how confused I am? This We Hate the Cold. His new channel is We Love the Heat. Yeah. We Hate the Cold, We Love the Heat. So We Hate the Cold is his main channel, and We Love the Heat is his behind the scenes channel. Yeah, I think every time I try to think, the naming system for me is so confusing. But anyway, so he's posting all of these very rough, unedited daily vlogs on We Love the Heat. And I've been watching some of those videos. But when I saw that, even more I wanted to meet him because I could understand exactly what he was doing. Because I think in his mind, he's a little bit frustrated because he puts so much work into his videos. The We Hate the Cold videos, his main videos, he works so hard on them, spends so much time, but he's not getting the hundreds of thousands of views that he was hoping for. So it's a little bit frustrating. And it's like, I put all this work into these videos, and I mean, his videos are more popular than mine are. But even so, they're not like Itchy Boots level or anybody else. So now I think in his mind, well, I have all this other video and this video isn't working really, so why don't I have a second channel and I can upload? I think in his mind, he's trying to figure out what's popular. Like, not many people are watching my polished videos, but what if I post an unpolished daily vlog? Maybe hundreds of thousands of people will watch that. And if people prefer that, then I'll stop making the documentaries and I'll make daily vlogs, right? Anyway, I could just relate. I could see him thinking all of this through, because I've gone through the same thing myself, where, all the time that previous to the current time in my life now, where I had a YouTube channel, and I tried out different types of videos where my videos were really long, and then nobody's watching them, nobody's enjoying them. So I think, well, maybe I'll just make them shorter. So I experimented by posting shorter videos, but still nobody watched them and they weren't very popular. So I thought, so maybe I need to do this, and maybe I need to do that, and maybe I do it this way and this way. And I feel like I tried out many different styles of video, many different subject matters, many different lengths, and nothing has hit a chord with a big audience on YouTube. So I think about the same things that Harry is thinking about. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And I guess that leads me into what I was just talking about, that I uploaded 2 videos, and one video and then the extended cut of that video. And that's one of the big experiences I had here in Tanjung Balai, where here in Tanjung Balai I'm very interested in the fishing boats. I love looking at them. I love going up and down the river. The last time I was here, I did a riverboat tour, and the tour took us past one section of river where there were dozens, I think maybe even hundreds of fishing boats docked at the side. Huge ones, small ones, all kinds of different colorful, crazy, interesting fishing boats. So what I decided to do this time, I got on my bicycle like 2 or 3 days ago, and I rode my bike to that river shore. I had to go ride from here to downtown, cross a bridge, and then I was going to ride along the shore of the river and look at all the fishing boats. So that was my plan for the day, and my plan was to make a video about it. And in typical Planet Doug fashion, I went a bit overboard. So I was really busy preparing for this trip, because it had been a long time since I'd ridden a bike while shooting video. So I had to do a lot of preparations here in my room, getting all my camera gear ready. So I thought, well, why don't I film that to an extent? So the video starts here in Planet Doug Studios, and I went through all of my camera gear and talked about everything that I'm going to be bringing with me today. I'm going to be bringing this GoPro and this GoPro and this mount and this mount and this microphone, and I went through all the gear that I'm going to be bringing with me to film the fishing boats. And then I shot a sequence that I call the blue dot on Google Maps. So basically I turned on my laptop, turned on screen recording, and then I showed Tanjung Balai on my laptop on Google Maps, and then I recorded the screen with a microphone, and using the cursor of my mouse, I talked about, okay, I'm here, this is Tanjung Balai, and I'm going to ride my bike here to the river, and I'm going to look at, then I basically showed on Google Maps where I'm going and talked about what I'm going to be doing. And all of that ended up being, I think, about 20 to 30 minutes long. And I hadn't even left my room yet, right? And then I got on my bike, and then I rode my bike from my hotel down to the main street, and I rode along the main street to the bridge. And the entire time I was talking about things that I'm seeing around me, some monuments. I'm putting in Google Maps screenshots showing where I'm going, and I saw an interesting building. I took video of the building. I talked about my camera mounts and what's working. Oh, I gotta fix this. Oh, I gotta tighten this. Like basically behind the scenes content. And then I finally got to the bridge and crossed the river. I filmed all of that. And then I went down to a dock area, and there were a bunch of fishing boats there. And I was very, very lucky when I got there, because I was approached by some fishermen, and the fishermen couldn't speak English, but I'm getting very accustomed to using Google Translate now. I use it all the time. And I had a conversation with one of the fishermen, and it turned out he was the captain of this fishing boat. And I asked him a bunch of questions about the boat, how they go fishing, lots of practical questions. And then I asked him, like, can I get on your boat and take video? Can you show me your boat? And he agreed to do that. So I had the opportunity to get on one of these fishing boats and take video of everything going on the boat. There's filled with the crew, they're fixing all the nets, they're working on the boat. They're basically getting ready to go out fishing again. And then the captain took me on a tour. He showed me I can never think of the name, where the captain drives the boat. What do you call that area of the boat? I can't think of the name for some reason. But it's it looked like a very old boat. He said it was only 3 years old, but to me it looked more like 20 to 30 years old. It looked like an old boat, very rough around the edges, very simple, not a modern ship of any kind. So I got to see where you drive the boat. I got to see the engine room. I got to see so many things. And thinking back, there was a lot more I wanted to see and I could have asked about, but I asked quite a few questions and I had that tour. And then I left from that dock and then I rode my bike along the river and I visited a bunch more docks. I didn't go on any more fishing boats. That was the only boat that I went on. I think because, again, it was Ramadan. It was actually Idul Fitri, the celebration of the end of Ramadan, I guess. So most people were not working that day. Most people were at home with their families. So there wasn't a lot of activity. But I did get to see a lot more fishing boats. And I rode my bike as far as I could go on the road until the road basically ended. And it got so muddy and rocky and so narrow, the road basically stopped. And then I stopped there. And my idea was to remove my GoPro from the bike and put on the 360 camera and then ride back and film my return ride with the 360 camera. And while I was swapping out the cameras, some of the children and some of the people from the villages there, they all saw me there on my bicycle, and a lot of people, maybe 20 people in total, came up to me to talk to me, and they all wanted to take pictures with me. So there was like a 20-minute selfie session. Everybody took turns taking pictures with me, with the foreigner. And I had a lot of trouble communicating with that group in particular. I couldn't get anybody to do the Google Translate thing. It was, I guess, too many people, too chaotic, and then anyway, so I didn't really get to communicate with anyone. But we took lots of pictures together. And then I rode my bike all the way back, talking, any thought that was in my head, filming with the 360 camera. And then I got back to the bridge, rode across the bridge, and I saw this smoothie place, like a fruit smoothie place. And I stopped there and I had an avocado smoothie and then a banana smoothie, then a second banana smoothie. And then I rode my bike all the way back to the hotel, filming all the time, talking. And then at the very end, I came into my room, set up a camera, and then I talked here in my room, a conclusion to the video. So that would be your typical Planet Doug type of experience and a Planet Doug type of video. Unfortunately, when I put all of that video into a timeline, it ended up being 2 hours and 20 minutes long. And me personally, I don't mind that. I love the video that I shot. I think all of it is quite interesting. But of course, in the world of YouTube, not many people are interested in a 2-hour travel video. And even if people are interested, YouTube is never going to show anyone that video. So I think by posting long videos, you shoot yourself in the foot, because for all you know, you are making the best video that has ever been made. You don't know. It could be a very good video that could have a wide audience, but you'll never know because YouTube will not show it to anyone, because they know their algorithm, their computer systems they're designed to spread videos that it knows people will watch so that they can make more money. And their computer is going to look at my video, a 2-hour video, no. And they're just not going to spread it. They're not going to try. And even if the YouTube algorithm did spread it around on the internet, most people will look at how long it is and nobody's going to click on it. And then the YouTube algorithm will figure that out, and you're done. Your YouTube channel is never going to grow. Your videos will never be popular because they're just too long, you know. And me personally, I mean, I know that. I figured that out. I'm a dummy, but I finally figured that out. And I thought maybe Patreon could sort of fill in the gaps a little bit where, okay, maybe 500,000 people will never watch one of my videos, but maybe 2,000 people will. And maybe out of those 2,000, I can convince a couple hundred to join Patreon as paying members if they're interested enough in what I do. And with that small income, I can continue traveling around the world and making these types of videos. So I thought Patreon could be a way of supporting my type of YouTube efforts. So far, my experience with Patreon is no, that's not going to happen either. So, yeah. Anyway, so that was that video. And I was wondering what to do with it. And what I have done in the past, of course, is I made 2 copies. I tried to take that video and make it shorter, and I post the short video first, and that's the Planet Doug video, and then I wait 2 or 3 days, and then I post the full video, the complete video, and I call that one the extended cut. And again, that kind of relates to Harry with We Hate the Cold. Yeah, We Hate the Cold, because he's now kind of doing the same thing, where he's posting his polished video, the one he thinks will be popular, to We Hate the Cold, and then he's posting the extended cut to We Love the Heat. But what I do is I put the main video and the extended cut on the same channel. And good thing to do, dumb thing to do, terrible thing to do, I just don't know, but that is currently what I do. So this morning when I was talking about the 2 videos that I uploaded, the 9 gigabyte video, that was the 1-hour version, and then the 16 gigabyte or 18 gigabyte was over 2 hours long, and they've both been uploaded now. So today I'm going to be working on those videos. You got to do the thumbnail and the video description. And these days I'm still doing the transcript, which I really enjoy. I take the YouTube subtitles because YouTube creates automatic captions and they're usually terrible. So I copy and paste the captions from YouTube into an AI, and I ask the AI to add correction, like to add like spell check it and add punctuation and things like that. And then I take that transcript and copy it back into YouTube. So I have to do all of that today. That bicycle trip to go see the fishing boats that I just talked about, it was definitely an interesting experience and something of a learning curve in terms of shooting video on the bicycle. I mean, when I was back in Port Dickson before I came here with my bicycle, I spent some time working out different ways of mounting GoPros on the bike. And I've talked about this quite a lot in the past, and I think a lot of people don't really understand what I'm talking about, because in order to understand it, I think you have to experience it. And the basic idea is that most people see a video that was shot on a motorcycle. So for example, someone like Nora Lee on the Itchy Boots YouTube channel, she has a camera mounted on her helmet chin. So she's got a GoPro right here on the chin of her helmet, aiming forward. And then she has another GoPro mounted on the handlebars of her motorcycle and a 360 camera as well. And that works out really nicely for her. So this camera on her helmet shoots. You can see the handlebars of the motorcycle, you can see the dash, you can see her GPS device, you can see her hands operating the controls, and you can see the road ahead and the scenery. So that works out really nice. And then the GoPro on her handlebars has got a very moderate sort of mounting apparatus aiming back at her, and you see her quite clearly as well. So you think, well, what's so hard about that? Like, why does Doug struggle so much to shoot video? Look how easy it is. Well, as I've talked about endlessly, and then nobody ever seems to understand, is that a motorcycle and a bicycle are very different in terms of the geometry. So basically what I'm talking about is the relative position of the seat relative to the handlebars are completely different on a motorcycle as opposed to a bicycle. So for example, on a motorcycle, the handlebars are higher than the seat. And what that means is you're basically, when you're riding a motorcycle, you're sitting like you're sitting on a chair, and then the handlebars are above and ahead of you. So your GoPro just sits there naturally. You don't have to raise it up or put it forward. And also the reverse procedure, the GoPro on her chin mount, because the handlebars are up above and ahead of her, it just naturally captures that scene. But on a bicycle, the seat and the handlebars are the same level. So when you are sitting on the seat of the bicycle, you are up above your handlebars. Your chin is like up above the handlebars because you're leaning forward. So you can't put a GoPro on the handlebars because they're down below you. Like if you put a GoPro on the handlebars of a bike, it's basically shooting up at the bottom of your chin and aiming at the sky. So that doesn't work. And then if you put a GoPro on your chest, or if you're wearing a helmet, like a full face shield helmet, and then you put a GoPro here, you're not seeing the handlebars. All you're seeing is the road ahead because the handlebars are way down below you. It's a completely different geometry. So that's why it takes some time and some effort to figure out a way to record video on a bicycle. So that's what I worked on when I was in Port Dickson, and what I do is put a broomstick on my bicycle so that it is sticking forward and up. And then I take this gizmo, this is a ram mount, and I put the ram mount on the end of the broomstick, and then my GoPro, which is on this quick release mount, just clicks into place on there. So that's basically what I do. And it works out relatively well, but had a lot of trouble. The main problem from the GoPro point of view is that it vibrates too much. Maybe because my broomstick, it wasn't tightened down enough, or the broomstick isn't rigid enough, or it's too long. I'm gonna have to work on this because the GoPro has really, really good stabilization. And when you watch the video of the GoPro aiming at me as I'm riding the bicycle, look at the background. The background, everything around me is rock solid. So the stabilization is working beautifully. So even though the GoPro is like bouncing and shaking, everything you see is rock steady and stabilized. But my face isn't. So you get this really weird image. I'm not sure what's going on here, to be honest, or how to fix it, where the background is nice and stable, and then my head against the background is like vibrating like crazy. So I'm like shaking. My face is going up and down, but the background is rock steady. And yeah, so that's a little bit of a problem. And I haven't quite figured out, maybe there's no way to fix that. Maybe there's nothing else I can do. Maybe I can shorten the broomstick, use something that's more rigid than a broomstick, tighten this, do this. One thing I realized, I'm such a dummy. Like I said, there's a learning curve. where I went out that whole day, rode my bike, had all these experiences, tried to work with all of my cameras. And then when I came back here and I'm editing the video, then I remembered that GoPros have two stages for stabilization. There's regular stabilization, and then they have boost, like a high-powered stabilization. So when you're riding a bicycle or motocrossing or skateboarding, you turn on high-powered boost stabilization. And I completely forgot that that setting existed. So the next time I do this as an experiment, of course, I'm going to set my GoPros to boost. The one that's facing me will have to be on boost stabilization. And maybe that will help. And then, yeah, we'll see whether that does anything. The other part of my learning curve had to do with the 360 camera. And again, I'm such a dummy. I didn't even think of this in advance. So the thing about the 360 camera is that on the base of it, it has a tripod threaded mount. So it doesn't have like the GoPro system, the fingers. It only has a tripod mount, like a screw hole basically in the bottom. So when I was out there and I decided to mount the 360 camera, I just naturally looked at all of my mounting apparatus, and I found something that has a tripod screw. I don't know if you can see it there in the GoPro, but there's a little screw here. And then you take the 360, so I took my quick release mechanism, which has a GoPro mount, and then I took this gizmo, which has a GoPro finger mount, but it also has a tripod thread, and then I screwed in the 360 camera into this. And one thing I do is I make it vertical. Like normally to make the stick invisible, you put the camera in here sticking out in a straight line. But I don't want to do that, because if I do that and the thing is bouncing up and down on the bicycle, it's putting too much torque on this threaded mount, and I'm pretty sure it's going to tear out of the camera. So what I do is I set it to go straight up and down like this, which works out fine with the 360 camera. So this is what I put on my bike, and it feels very, very solid. I tighten this up. I've got a special wrench to tighten that down. I'm like, that's going to work great. But one thing you learn very quickly is that torque and forces are much stronger than you realize. So I can hold on to this and I try to bend it with my fingers. It's like, I can't even move it. That's solid. That's rock solid. That's going to work out really, really well. But you put this on your bike, you put your 360 camera on there, which sticks up really high. The very first bump you go over, it twists, because the torque forces when you're going over bumps are being applied here. Little bumps, it goes a little bit, then a little bit, then a little bit, little bit. So after 5 bumps, the camera has gone from this orientation, now it's suddenly flat. And no matter how much you tighten this, there's no way you can fix that, because again, the forces are too strong. And as you go over a whole bunch of bumps, the camera just moves out of alignment over and over and over. And it was like, so that doesn't work. So I thought maybe, and this was coming loose, so I came out with another. I have this tripod threaded mount system, and I thought, this will work better. So I stopped at the side of the road and I switched out everything, and I put this on instead of this, and I tightened it up as much as I could, but this didn't work either. And after the first couple of bumps, the camera was out of alignment again. So it's like, so frustrating. How am I going to fix this? I'm such a dummy though that I completely forgot that I bought a special RAM mount with a tripod thread on it. So I have the perfect tool for this. I bought it specifically for this situation, and then I completely forgot that I had it. So what the difference is that this doesn't require a GoPro mount. So this thing, in order to mount this, I have to use a GoPro mount to put it on, and that's the weak point. It twists. but on a ram mount, it uses a ball joint. So, and this you can really, really tighten up. So this is what I normally use, but now I can take this out, and I take this, put it in, tighten it up, and then I put the, this goes on the end of the broomstick, and now I've got a tripod threaded mount. I can put the camera here, and this is not going to move. That's what it's designed for. You've got this huge lever here. You tighten up that lever on this rubber ball, and it is not going to go anywhere when you get it nice and tight. So it was like I had the perfect mounting apparatus for the 360 camera, but I completely forgot that I had it and why I bought it, or even when I bought it. So anyway, next time I do that, I'm going to put the 360 camera on here, and it should work out much, much better. Though I have to say I was really disappointed in the quality of the 360 video, and I kind of anticipated it would be like that. That's the biggest problem with 360 cameras, is that the resolution is pretty bad. The video quality isn't as good as a GoPro or any other action camera or regular camera. Because yeah, when you shoot 360 video, it is shooting in a circle. It is shooting the entire sphere all at the same time. And then when you reframe that video, you're only using a small part of it. So you're ending up with something like 720p, depending on how much you zoom in or zoom out, 1080p at the most. But looking at my video, how bad it looks, how pixelated it looks, very, very low resolution. I think it ends up being something like 720p. So my Insta360 X3, I really like using it, but the reason I like using it is because you don't have to aim it anywhere. The 360 camera is filming all around you, so you could just mount it on your bike, hit record, and you never have to worry about pointing the camera at anything. So anything interesting at the side of the road, somebody comes and talks to you, anything in front of you, anything behind you, anything above you, everything is being filmed at the same time. And then when you're editing, you can decide what to include in the video. It's very convenient. But the disadvantages are twofold. It takes a long time to reframe the video, and the resolution is very, very, very poor. So, but I have heard that the new version, the Insta360 X4, is much, much better, much higher resolution and much better video quality. So, but at the moment, of course, I do not have a X4. I just have the Insta360 X3. So that's what I'm using right now. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like using it. In the video where I shot a video of all of us taking selfies together, all of that was shot with the 360 camera, and it ended up being very useful because I captured all of the activity. I could aim it all around and include all the people that were there taking selfies with me. And you couldn't do that with a GoPro unless you're constantly holding the GoPro, and then you're constantly, like, you're trying to talk to all these people, but now you're holding on to a camera, and then you're aiming at everybody. Oh, what's your name? Oh, okay. Oh, well, who are you? You know, and it's really awkward and very difficult to do. The 360 camera, it was just sitting on my bike. All I did was hit the record button, and then I just left it there. I didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to look at it. I didn't have to aim it. Didn't have to touch it. And I just took pictures with all these people, tried to chat with them, and then afterwards I can reframe the video, and it worked out really, really well. Continuing with the theme of learning curve and what a dummy I am, I came across something else while I was editing the video, and it was so obvious to me when I was editing it. I couldn't believe it that I never thought of it before, because this relates to using Google Translate to talk to people. Before this trip to Tanjung Balai, I shot a video in which I spoke to a couple of small business owners here. Like I talked to a man who sells snacks at the side of the road, and a man who repairs shoes at the side of the road. And I was just asking simple questions about how long have they been doing this business, and what do they make, and just some practical details about their lives running this small business. And then I was asking all these questions through Google Translate. So basically, when I'm taking the video, what you see in the video is me holding my phone. I hit the button for Google Translate, and then I say, "How long have you been running this business?" And then it translates it into Indonesian. I hit play on the audio. The other person listens to the audio where I ask the question. Then I hit Google Translate. They reply in Indonesian. It translates it into English, and I can read their answer. That's all well and good. But when you put all of that in the video, it just seemed to take a very long time. So I wanted to speed it up in editing. So because them speaking in Indonesian, and I'm in Indonesia, for some reason I got it into my head that everything should be like that. So what I did was I deleted the section where I'm speaking, like the section where I'm hitting Google Translate and saying my question in English. I deleted that from the video, and instead I wrote out the question in English, put it in a caption, so when they are listening to the Indonesian Google Translate, I have the English translation on the screen. And that made sense to me. Like, oh, that's the good way to do it. So I edited the videos where I deleted all of me speaking in English. And for some crazy reason, that made sense to me. And anyway, I was editing this video where I was talking to the fishing captain, the captain of the fishing boat, and I was doing the exact same thing. And I was deleting all the sections where I was speaking English, and I was making a text box and typing it in, and this was taking a super long time to do. And then it dawned on me, it's like, hold it. Why am I doing this? Essentially, I'm making people read subtitles, even though I was speaking in English. I had it completely backwards. So now what I did was I kept the part where I was speaking English. It was like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Where I say to the fishing captain, you know, I'm speaking into my phone, when you go out into the ocean, how many days and nights is each fishing trip? Now I keep that in the video because most people are watching the video in English. So why am I deleting the English part and converting English into captions? It didn't make any sense. So now I kept that part in. I couldn't believe it took me so long to figure that out. It's just common sense. So anyway, that was also part of my learning curve for this kind of experience. So yeah, a very interesting trip from a camera editing point of view, and just from an experience of learning something about the lives of all of these fishermen. Another learning curve story, something I just figured out like this week, which is so amazing that it took me so long to figure this out. I figured out that with my new laptop, I've got a powerful video editing laptop now, the Asus TUF A16 that I keep talking about. And a big advantage to this laptop is that I can edit 4K video without any issue at all. It has enough power that I don't even have to think about it. I don't have to use proxy files. I don't have to mess around with resolution and keep adjusting everything because, yeah, it has enough power. It can play and edit 4K video without any problem. But what I realized this week, not only can I edit in 4K without any problem, no stuttering, no lagging, no freezing, no problems, I can do it at double speed and even triple speed and even quadruple speed. So now I can edit video 2 or 3 times faster. So for example, in the old days, like one of these podcast videos, I routinely, in the past, I recorded these podcast videos. They would be 2, 3, or even 4 hours long. So after I record all of this, when I'm editing the video, I have to sit down and listen to the whole thing myself as I edit. So if it is a 3-hour podcast, it takes me something like 5 hours just to listen to it and edit it, because I'm listening to it in real time. I actually have to sit through the whole thing, and then I'm editing, removing any mistakes that I made, fixing things, and I have to make sure everything's okay. So if it's a 3-hour video, I have to listen to it for at least 3 hours, and it takes like an hour and a half, 2 hours to fix everything. So it's like a 5-hour process just to listen to it one time. And that takes a very long time. But it finally dawned on me, I don't have to listen to it in real time. On my Asus laptop, I realized I can do video playback, 4K video playback in the editing program at double speed. So, and I can still hear everything perfectly. I can hear everything I say. It's just that I'm not speaking in my normal voice. I'm speaking twice as fast. I can even do it 3 times faster, and I can still understand what I'm saying. So now if I have like a 3-hour video, instead of taking 3 hours to listen to it myself, I can do it in 1 hour. Or if it's a 1-hour video, I can listen to it in 20 minutes. And it's like, like, why did it take me so long to figure this simple thing out? So now when I'm done recording this podcast, for example, I have to edit it, and I'm going to load it into my computer, copy the video files, and then I'll do playback at least double speed, and it makes everything twice as fast because my laptop has the power to do that. My old laptops couldn't do that. I certainly couldn't do it on one of my phones. Anyway, yeah, the learning curve never ever stops. And these things are so obvious. I should have thought of this ages ago, but I didn't think of it until this week. And I think I will end today's podcast there. I still have a lot of YouTube videos from other vloggers I want to talk about, and I have a lot of pop culture to talk about, TV shows and movies, things like that, but I'm pretty worn out. I'm really, really tired, and I've been talking long enough, I think, so I will set that aside, those topics, and I'll talk about some of the TV shows I've been watching, things like that. I'll talk about that in the next podcast. All right, thank you once again for hanging out with me here on the Planet Doug behind the scenes channel, the Planet Doug podcast, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.